Chapter 1147. I am Zhaoqingyi. I would like to ask Senior Brother Shenhong for some advice. After Yang Rong, the siblings, Zhaoqingyi and Zhao Qingkai, also appeared on the battlefield. The gigantic tree was like a divine tree that reached the heavens. Its thick branches spread out like a huge net. It was as if the tree had reached the boundary and enveloped the heavens and earth. Shenhong looked at the people in front of him with a playful look on his face. No wonder all the competitors are so strong this year. So there are so many sacred bloodline boundary cultivators. Shenhong's aura was like a mountain as he stood in the air. Yang Rong smiled. I wonder if Senior Brother Shenhong can do us a favor and let us onto the elephant boat platform? Of course. Shenhong replied without hesitation. His voice paused for a moment before he smiled playfully. But first, you have to step over me. Since that's the case, then we'll have to offend you. Yang Rong's eyes turned cold as a wave of heat surged out of his body. He put his palms together and a monstrous scarlet flame surged out of his body. Buzz, buzz. Space trembled as waves of fire filled the sky. A flame giant suddenly charged out of the vast waves. It was like the earth core fire demon that charged out of the lava. It launched an extremely domineering attack and threw a punch at Shenhong. Roar! The furious might that shook the heavens rumbled like thunder. A fierce and piercingly cold air current swept out and swept down. Everyone present was secretly startled. Senior Brother Yang Rong is indeed powerful. Humph! Shenhong sneered. How can a grain of rice compete with the sun and moon? As he spoke, Shenhong raised his hand and made a grabbing motion in the air. In an instant, a rapidly flowing golden cyclone gathered at the center of his palm. Bang! An extremely heavy sound shook the heavens. The ferocious flame giant's fist smashed into a layer of golden shield. The incomparably ferocious power collided, causing the surroundings to tremble endlessly. The chaotic flame current was like a red torrent that was blocked by a boulder. It rushed towards Shenhong's left and right. That's all. Shenhong sneered. Then, he loosened his 5 fingers, and an even more violent aura immediately leaked out from his palm. Then, a gorgeous rainbow light burst out from Shenhong's palm. The sword-like rainbow light instantly penetrated the palm and arm of the flame giant. The powerful force met the attack head-on, and the arm of the flame giant exploded bit by bit, breaking off inch by inch. Bang! Under the shocked gazes of everyone present, the huge body of the flame giant, along with its entire arm, was blasted into pieces by this overbearing force. The scorching and heavy shockwaves swept in all directions. Countless fireballs danced in the sky. Apart from a few deer chasers, the surrounding disciples were all sent flying by the aftershock of this ferocious might. Chi-chi. At the same time, the huge tree that reached the sky twisted its branches violently like a living thing. Numerous dragon-like branches turned into sturdy and heavy stakes and shot towards Shenhong. A cold light flashed in Shenhong's eyes. One of his hands turned into a palm blade. The palm that was covered with a golden light was comparable to a divine weapon that could cut through iron like mud. With a wave of his hand, a golden arc-shaped saber radiance slashed out with great force. Crack! The thick and solid tree branches were directly chopped off from the middle. However, at the same time that one of the tree branches that was chopped off flew out, it suddenly distorted in a strange manner, accompanied by a powerful and piercingly cold aura that crushed towards Shenhong. The tree trunk actually transformed into a handsome man with an extraordinary bearing. It's Zhaoqingyi. Everyone in the room was astonished. Just a moment ago, Zhaoqingyi was still several miles away. But in the blink of an eye, she had already arrived in front of Shenhong. It was really surprising. On the city gate tower below the elephant boat platform, Zhuahao and the other 2 also revealed astonished expressions. This should be the legendary Tree Soul Holy Body? One of the young men said with a profound look in his eyes. It can't be wrong. The Tree Soul Holy Body not only has an extremely strong recovery ability, but it can also fuse with the giant tree and become a part of the tree soul at any time. Among the many holy body bloodlines, it belongs to the top grade. The other person affirmed. I have to say that this year's batch of rookies is indeed very strong. However, with senior brother Shen Hong here, they don't have any chance at all. Listening to the words of the two people beside him, Zhao Hao's eyes flashed. He frowned and said, Wait. There's still one more person who hasn't appeared. Oh? The two people beside him were surprised. Qi Xing. He's not here, Zhao Hao said in a low voice. As soon as he said that, the two people calmed down and looked around vigilantly. I heard that guy is the strongest person among the rookies this year. Don't let him take advantage of the loophole. With the three of us here, even if Qi Xing has extraordinary abilities, he won't be able to step onto the elephant boat platform. Bang! Bang! Zhao Qingyi, who relied on the power of the tree soul, was the first to close in on Shen Hong. The two of them continuously released the power of their fists and palms. Every time they clashed, it caused the air to distort and shake, and waves of air filled the sky. However, the difference in their realms quickly caused Zhao Qingyi to be at a disadvantage. Every time Shen Hong attacked, he would firmly suppress Zhao Qingyi. To be able to receive so many of my attacks, you should be proud, Hua. After saying that, Shen Hong's aura multiplied. The thick true yuan surrounding his body quickly surged towards his palms. In the sky, the wind and clouds surged. You can lie down now. The surging aura pressed down, and in that instant, Shen Hong's entire arm turned into a golden and dazzling holy light. Containing the power to destroy mountains and rivers, it struck towards Zhao Qingyi. The latter's pupils constricted, and without hesitation, she also extended her palm. Bang! The two palms collided, and the thick true yuan covering Zhao Qingyi's arm was instantly shattered. The latter was smart and did not use supreme force to resist, but used a soft hidden force. A chaotic true yuan ripple spread out between the two, and Zhao Qingyi was directly sent flying by the opponent's powerful palm. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. At the same time, the giant tree below suddenly grew, and the thick tree trunk directly welcomed Zhao Qingyi's back. Buzz! A circular ripple spread out in the air, and Zhao Qingyi crashed into the inside of the tree trunk, and directly melted in. Shen Hong's expression turned cold, and he actually had no intention of letting his opponent go. No one can escape from my hands. Finished speaking, Shen Hong flew to the sky above the giant tree. He clenched his hand, and with a xiao sound of the wind breaking rang out. A fierce true essence vortex covered his palm, directly transforming into a giant blade that was 23 meters long. The condensed light ripple wandered around the blade. It was as if a divine blade had grown out of Shen Hong's body. Without any hesitation, Shen Hong raised his arm, and chopped down at the giant tree below. Crack! Branches and leaves split apart, and wood splinters flew everywhere. As the blade fell, the lush giant tree was like a giant bird's nest that had been split open, and the giant tree trunk also rapidly split apart. Following the rapid splitting of the tree trunk, Zhao Qingyi, who was hiding in the giant tree, was once again exposed to the air. A cruel sneer appeared on Shen Hong's face. Grasping the giant blade, he chopped through the layers of tree trunk, and swiftly chopped down at Zhao Qingyi below. The latter's expression slightly changed, and she sternly shouted, "Qing Kai." "I know." Zhao Qingxi's tone was unyielding as she replied. A strange bloodline boundary power spread out from Zhao Qingxi's body, and rays of green light flowed between her fingers. Her pale white fingers quickly formed a seal. A powerful aura directly controlled the power of the giant tree through the air. Tree boundary! Buzz! A sharp aura once again erupted from the huge tree that had been split into two. Numerous sharp tree stumps and thorns suddenly pierced out from the tree. Xiao xiao xiao! The crisscrossing sharp wooden spikes approached Shen Hong from both sides. The latter's gaze was slightly cold, and he immediately stopped his attack on Zhao Qingyi, and quickly exploded with a biting cold palm force. blasting towards the left and right. However, this time, the powerful palm force was actually unable to dispel the incoming attack. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, the sharp wooden spikes actually directly pierced through Shen Hong's true energy palm force, and then, like a giant mouth filled with sharp teeth, it rapidly closed. Her bloodline boundary actually ignores the surface of the body's defense. Even Zhua Hao and the other two on the city gate tower were shocked. It has to be said, Shen Hong's reaction speed was also extremely fast, and he continuously flashed, agilely dodging the incoming wooden spikes. However, at this moment, the giant bird's nest-like tree crown began to shrink like a giant net, the earth-shattering tree branches rapidly shrunk, and wrapped around Shen Hong from all directions. Strong and sturdy tree trunks of the horned dragon tree kept trapping him from the inside out. Shen Hong was like a trapped bird trapped in a net of vines. Very good. Yang Rong's face revealed an excited smile. This is the moment I've been waiting for. Buzz, an unprecedented majestic aura poured out of Yang Rong's body, and he flew up into the air and looked down with both palms, smelting the heavens. Boom! Bang! In an instant, the ground beneath them split open, forming a series of deep chasms. Scorching hot geocentric flames surged into the sky. The color of the earth changed, and the heat wave rose to the sky. Under the increasingly excited gazes of the crowd, layers of magma formed a tsunami-like wall of fire with the giant tree as the center. The magma that shot into the sky surrounded the giant tree, and rapidly condensed into a giant ball of fire. The speed of the flames was incomparably fast, and the branches and leaves that came into contact with it were set ablaze. In the blink of an eye, the entire giant tree was enveloped in a sea of fire. At this moment, Shen Hong felt like he was inside a heavenly smelting furnace. The flames that shot into the sky formed a violent destructive storm. Good job, senior brother Yang Rong. All the competitors were extremely excited. Buzz, next to Zhao Qingkai, a whirlpool of energy surged, and the space slowly warped. The high-spirited Zhao Qingyi appeared in a flash. Not bad. Zhao Qingkai smiled gently. Of course, don't you know who I am? Zhao Qingkai said proudly. Humph, what a sacred tree soul physique, to be able to achieve such precise coordination. The three people on the tower below the elephant boat platform were secretly shocked. Zhao Qingyi was able to escape unscathed from Shen Hong's hands with the help of the sacred tree soul physique and the bloodline boundary between siblings. Looking at the magnificent gigantic furnace, Zhua Hao said to the two people next to him, "Both of you go and help senior brother Shen Hong. I'll stay here and guard." "No, I'm afraid that Qi Xing is hiding nearby, waiting for an opportunity to strike," one of them said. "But Qi Xing is already here." "Oh?" The two were stunned. "Where?" "Head just beside you." Chapter 1148. "No, I'm afraid Qi Xing is hiding nearby, waiting for an opportunity to strike." "But Qi Xing is already here." "Oh? Where is he?" "Heh. He's right next to you." A mocking and disdainful smile appeared on Zhua Hao's face. At the same time, an overbearing and dangerous aura surged out. Both of their hearts jolted as horror dawned on their faces. They looked at Zhua Hao in shock. "You're not Zhua Hao, you're right." Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, a violent torrent of energy instantly spread out from the city tower. Two incomparably strong and powerful palms hit the two people's chests. Bang! Bang! Two heavy muffled sounds overlapped with each other as the force of 1,000 caddies came crashing down. In an instant, two miserable figures flew out like sandbags. Fresh blood spurted out from their mouths as they fell heavily onto the ground. Their faces were as pale as a sheet. Both of them stared at Zhua Hao, who was standing on the city tower in disbelief. Zhua Hao's face was filled with pride. Immediately after, his face suddenly glowed with a gentle light, and his facial features twisted in a strange way. Whoosh! A gust of air spread out, and a brand new face appeared in the air. "It's senior brother Qi Xing." The crowd behind exclaimed excitedly. Following that, everyone's eyes lit up. So senior brother Qi Xing is there. Haha. This is perfect. Besides Yang Rong, all the other contestants were extremely shocked, and their shock was filled with pleasant surprise. Even the siblings, Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingkai, were surprised. From the beginning until the end, they had been kept in the dark. Everyone had guessed Qi Xing would be the main point of attack, but they did not expect he would use such a method to deceive everyone. Just as Qi Xing had said, if one wanted to deceive the enemy, one must first deceive one's own people. One had to admit Qi Xing's move was brilliant. A disdainful smirk appeared on Qi Xing's face as he looked at the huge flame furnace that shrouded Shen Hong. It seems like I've won. After saying that, Qi Xing leaped into the air and moved. He was like a king who had stepped onto the pilgrimage platform as he swept toward the top of the elephant boat platform. Newcomers fighting for supremacy, Star Keys fighting for supremacy. Success was close at hand. Yang Rong, Zhao Qingyi, Zhao Qingkai, and all the other competitors revealed expressions of excitement and anticipation. He was going to win. They were the first newcomers to win in the history of the martial arts organization. Qi Xing's eyes were also filled with unconcealable joy. However, just as he was about to step onto the elephant boat platform, a boom. Violent space shock spread in the sky. What? Everyone was shocked. In the void between Qi Xing and the elephant boat platform, a series of beautiful and solid light patterns quietly emerged, the light patterns interweaved into a net, sealing off the four directions of elephant boat platform. There's a boundary. Yang Rong frowned. Humph. Qi Xing let out a cold snort, and an incomparably solid real elemental power poured into his palms. Break. Hiss, the violent power contained in his palms was like a mountain, and an incomparably violent impact slammed into the light net boundary. Space trembled uneasily, and the entire boundary shook violently. At the same time, the heaven-refining furnace that covered the giant tree also released a violent and restless energy, like an undercurrent surging in the deep sea. An uneasy aura was rapidly brewing inside. Not good. Zhao Qingyi's expression changed. Boom. In the next instant, a nebula vortex that swept across the sky that was comparable to the explosion of the nine heavens' dazzling sun, blew apart the huge smelting furnace that hovered between the heavens and the earth under everyone's shocked gazes. The billowing heat waves were like the Red Sea. Layers of flaming storms surged in the sky and earth. Space distorted, and the earth cracked. Layers of rubble split open. A huge crater rapidly expanded and split open on the ground below. A piercingly cold and powerful wind pillar rushed in all directions. Yang Rong, Zhao Qingyi, and the others were all jolted back. Under the endless rain of fire that filled the sky, a tyrannical figure with golden flames rising from his body stood in the air. Looking up, they saw that Shen Hong wasn't injured in the slightest. The golden flames surrounding him were like dragons and golden pythons, and their auras were oppressive. Haha, not bad. You actually forced me to use the power of the bloodline boundary. Shen Hong said with a mocking smile. Yang Rong, Zhao Qingyi, and the others were inwardly shocked. What powerful power! Qi Xing, who had already reached the edge of the elephant boat platform, couldn't help but furrow his brows. Immediately, an even more powerful and vigorous power overflowed from his body. An endless stream of berserk power flowed like a vortex of light, rapidly gathering between his palms. In an instant, Qi Xing's palms seemed to have been soaked in the holy light of the sun, and a destructive aura leaked out. His two palms fell. Bang! An explosive sound rang out, and a crack appeared on the barrier light net in front of him. I made it! The hearts of the deer chasers lit up, and their faces lit up with joy. Qi Xing also raised his eyebrows. With the help of the fierce palm power, he forcibly tore the barrier net, and then his body moved, directly rushing towards the elephant boat platform. Everyone's heartstrings were stretched to the extreme. Their minds were trembling. However, Just as Qi Xing was about to step onto the elephant boat platform, a circle of condensed airwave ripples spread out on the platform with a bang sound accompanied by a vigorous light beam falling from the sky. A cold palm power blocked in front of Qi Xing's palms like an unshakable heavy shield. What? What? Everyone's hearts sank again. They saw that Shen Hong, who was several miles away, suddenly flashed back to the elephant boat platform. His speed was so fast that it was like divine light. The palm power of the two collided head-on, and circles of distorted true origin continuously flowed to both sides. With the edge of the elephant boat platform as the intersection point. One stood on the platform and the other stood in the air. What a pity! Just a little bit more. Shen Hong looked at Qi Xing in front of him with a playful expression. He shook his head with a faint smile. I have to say that you have indeed made me look at you in a new light. To think that you could actually think of such a method. What a trick to fool everyone by pretending to be the interceptor. After he pretended to be Zhua Hao, he even kept reminding the people around him that Qi Xing was missing. Going against the norm, the two of them let their guard down on the person beside them. When they were so focused on the battle that they did not notice the person beside them, they were easily defeated by Qi Xing. Qi Xing knew very well that Yang Rong, Zhao Qingyi, and the others were not a match for Shen Hong. Their goal was only to stall the other party and buy time for them. This was Qi Xing's plan. Although his plan was meticulous, the devil was 10 times stronger than the righteous. At this critical moment, they were mercilessly blocked by Shen Hong outside the elephant boat platform. Don't celebrate too early. There's only one person here. How can he stop us? Qi Xing said coldly. Shen Hong smirked coldly. Can't we just kill you? If I'm not mistaken, everyone's star key is with you, right? Qi Xing's eyes narrowed. He immediately threw out a few palm energies. At the same time, Shen Hong's eyes turned cold. An even more restless aura leaked out from his palm. The vigorous golden cyclone light pillar that lingered around his body rapidly intertwined with each other. Subsequently, it condensed into a flickering golden bull beast shadow behind him. Raging amplification force. Bang! A ferocious energy swept out of Shen Hong's body like an undercurrent in the deep sea. His palm contained the might of 1,000 caddies. In the next instant, the true origin energy that Qi Xing gathered crumbled layer by layer and exploded. Even his aura was suppressed to its lowest point. Bang! The ferocious impact sent Qi Xing flying. As he retreated, 2 dark red sickles suddenly appeared in his palms. He waved his hands. Whoosh! Whoosh! The sickles were like spiraling darts as they flew toward Shen Hong from the left and right. Come out! Along with Qi Xing's loud shout, the 2 sickles crossed on Shen Hong's back. Then, Qi Xing clenched his 5 fingers, and an invisible and violent dragging force erupted from the sickles. Shen Hong was directly pulled away from the elephant boat platform by this dragging force, and moved toward Qi Xing. Qi Xing's face was cold. You're courting death. The violent, raging amplification force overflowed. The golden raging bull that enveloped Shen Hong let out a furious roar. The 2 sickles hooked on his back were directly shattered. In the next instant, Shen Hong set off a majestic aura that was as strong as a mountain and directly crushed towards Qi Xing. Facing the menacing Shen Hong, Qi Xing flipped his hand and a jade token covered with vertical scars of the star key appeared in his hand. Yang Rong, Qi Xing waved his hand and the token in his hand turned into a beam of light and flew toward Yang Rong, Zhao Qingyi, Zhao Qingkai, and the others. Yang Rong and the others immediately understood and flew forward without hesitation. Obviously, this time, Qi Xing planned to hold Shen Hong back while the others took the star key and broke through to the elephant boat platform. Shen Hong frowned as he looked at the star key token that was flung away. Do you think you can stop me? Then, Shen Hong raised his palm and an earth-shattering palm aura rushed out like a torrent, pushing Qi Xing back again. After that, he paid no further attention to the other party, and his figure flashed like a ghost as he swiftly chased after the token. Although Yang Rong, Zhao Qingyi, and the others were very close to the token, but Shen Hong's speed was far faster than everyone else's. Both parties rushed toward the star key token from the south and north respectively. The rapid airflow kept colliding in the air 100 meters, 50 meters, 20 meters, 10 meters in an instant. Both parties were less than 10 meters away from the star key token. A strong suction force was released from each of their palms. If Yang Rong's side got it, they still had a chance to fight. But if it fell into Shen Hong's hands, it would be a failure. Who would win? Swoosh! However, right at this critical moment, a green sword image suddenly flashed through the sky. It was swift like a bolt of lightning, and it was like a shooting star that pierced through space. Ding! The tip of the green sword shadow accurately struck the star key token. What? Everyone present was shocked. Under the push of the green sword shadow, the token changed its direction and flew towards another direction along with the sword shadow. However, in the next moment, there was a turbulence in the air above the green sword shadow, accompanied by a faint distortion in the space. Whoosh! An afterimage flashed past, and a powerful palm firmly grasped the sword hilt, while the other hand grabbed the token blue sky sword. Flying fairy flash! Wherever the holy sword went, it was dazzling. Swoosh! The sudden scene immediately shocked everyone present. Everyone's gaze was focused on the young figure who had suddenly appeared. He had a handsome face, a slender figure, and a steady aura. There was an indescribable beauty about him when Qi Xing, Yang Rong, Zhao Qingyi, Zhao Qingkai, and everyone else's expressions changed. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. "It's you, you piece of trash." Qi Xing's eyes darkened as he glared at Chu Hen. "Return the token." Chu Hen's handsome eyebrows slightly raised. He lowered his head and looked at the token in his hand. Under the two words Western Dome, there were 4 rays of green light, 2 rays of red light, and 6 rays of silver light, 426 star keys. It was almost the sum of the star keys of over 100 newcomers. Then, under the astonished gazes of everyone present, Chu Hen took out another token that contained 164 star keys. Then, he inserted all 426 star keys into the token without hesitation. Boom! This scene immediately enraged everyone present. "What is this bastard doing?" Zhao Qingkai almost stomped his foot in anger. The situation was chaotic enough, but Chu Hen just had to come at this time to stir up trouble. It was really infuriating. Shen Hong, who was about to snatch it, looked at this unfamiliar young man in surprise. This is getting more and more interesting." Qi Xing, on the other hand, was already unable to restrain his anger. His eyes revealed a dense and limitless killing intent. Setting off a monstrous and majestic aura, he directly charged towards Chu Hen. "Stupid bastard, I'm going to take your cheap life." Zhao Qingyi wanted to stop him, but it was too late. An endless murderous aura enveloped Chu Hen. Qi Xing's eyes were fierce, and his expression was ferocious. He seemed to want to tear Chu Hen into pieces. "Go to hell, idiot." Qi Xing's attack was aimed at Chu Hen's life. Just when everyone present thought that Chu Hen had courted disaster and was about to lose his life on the spot, a cold glint flashed in Chu Hen's eyes. Qi! A sudden gust of air flashed past. Chu Hen somersaulted sideways and easily dodged Qi Xing's attack. In the next instant, Chu Hen turned around and gave a roundhouse kick, landing squarely on his opponent's chin. Bang! Qi Xing raised his head and flew up into the air with his face up. Everyone's heart was instantly shocked. Streaks of dazzling lightning streaked across the sky. Chu Hen instantly somersaulted and appeared above Qi Xing. Then, he raised his heavy leg. Violent lightning arcs gathered on his leg, intertwining and flowing, accompanied by the rolling wind and thunder. Everyone could only see a lightning arc sweeping across the sky. Bang! An incomparably heavy and violent sound was heard. Lightning bloomed and electric arcs splashed. Chu Hen's leg heavily swept on Qi Xing's chest. The dull sound was like a heavy hammer pounding on everyone's heart. Qi Xing's eyes widened in anger. His chest caved in as fresh blood spurted out of his mouth. The power of the thunderbolt poured down. Under everyone's shocked gazes, Qi Xing fell straight down from the sky. Boom! The rocks on the ground burst open, and every inch of the ground was like a swarm of startled moths. Qi Xing was lying on the rocks, covered in blood. It was just one move. Chapter 1149. Boom! An incomparably heavy explosion reverberated on the ground. In an instant, everyone present felt as though their hearts had been struck by a heavy hammer. Numerous rocks were sent flying into the air, and deep cracks continued to spread in all directions. Qi Xing was lying in the huge pit covered in blood. His aura was extremely weak, like a dead dog. He no longer had the arrogance he had before. The sudden scene was like a dream. Yang Rong, Zhao Qingyi, Zhao Qingkai, and the other participants widened their eyes. Their faces were filled with disbelief, shock. Absolute shock. In just a blink of an eye, Qi Xing, who was regarded as the strongest new disciple, was lying powerlessly on the ground. He could not even withstand a single attack from Chu Hen. This fellow. Yang Rong's brows were tightly knitted together like two dead silkworms. He gritted his teeth and muttered, "He's also at the third-level eternal stage." They were both at the third-level eternal stage. However, they were at the same level but on different levels. The difference in strength between them was not small. Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingkai were extremely surprised as well. Their understanding of Chu Hen was still at the Super Grade 9 Martial Tactic Innate Talent during the Flying Cloud City's evaluation. However, they did not know about his bloodline. Now that they thought about it, it seemed like Chu Hen had never revealed his true strength from the beginning until the end. Trash? Idlers? Unqualified people? Chu Hen's slap was like a slap to everyone's faces. Everyone was at a loss for words. Could it be that he was the one who obstructed us earlier? A trembling voice came from the crowd behind Yang Rong and Zhao Qingyi. Everyone was shocked again and again. Their expressions changed again and again. Great waves surged in everyone's heart. Whoosh! The air in the surroundings became extremely cold at this moment. Even Shen Hong's eyes could not help but reveal a never-before-seen coldness. Looking at Chu Hen in front of him, the corner of his mouth drew back, revealing a cold smile. "I'm really surprised every time. It's been a long time since something so interesting has happened in the sect." Waves of vigorous golden flames rose around Shen Hong's body. The barbaric bull beast's shadow that enveloped his body became increasingly solid, and its body rapidly swelled up and grew larger. Chu Hen raised his eyebrows and replied indifferently, "I'm afraid that senior brother Shen Hong does not intend to let me go? You can go over if you want." Shen Hong raised his hand as a hint of coldness appeared between his brows. "Hand over all the star keys." "Of course, I can allow you to keep 10, Chu Hen smiled. "10 is a little too little. I spent an entire day and only managed to get around 600. No matter what, you should at least leave half for me, right? What if I say no?" Buzz! As soon as he finished speaking, a fierce gust of wind blew past, and Shen Hong instantly disappeared from where he stood. So fast? The surrounding people were shocked. In the next moment, a tyrannical and violent aura suddenly whistled from behind Chu Hen. Accompanied by the sound of wind breaking, a sharp palm blade covered with a layer of flowing light tore through the air and slashed towards Chu Hen's back. It was like a ray of light, and as fast as lightning. But just as the palm blade was about to land, Chu Hen fearlessly turned around to receive it. Bang! Sparks flew everywhere as the intense true origin chi waves collided. Everyone's heart trembled again. He blocked it. They saw Chu Hen's left hand cross in front of him and directly block Shen Hong's palm blade. Everyone knew that Shen Hong's raging evolution sacred body bloodline could ignore the surface of the body. Its most domineering aspect was that it could directly penetrate the true origin armor and cause a substantial internal impact. However, It was this raging evolution hidden force that no one dared to face head-on that was met by Chu Hen with his bare hands. Moreover, he was as sharp as a boulder in the air, unwavering. Moo! The loud and clear raging bull's roar reverberated through the sky. Shen Hong's eyes narrowed. He raised one hand again and a solid golden shockwave erupted from his palm. Raging evolution break. The raging momentum that could break mountains and rivers poured over. Chu Hen held the blue sky sword in a reverse grip, and with a thought, a violent blue lightning ran up the sword. The holy sword wrapped in dazzling lightning slashed out and clashed with Shen Hong's palm force. Clang! The heavy sound of intersecting thunder shook the surroundings. Thousands of sparks and fiery rain exploded in the void. A terrifying power swept out in all directions, and the two figures were sent flying backwards. Yang Rong, Zhao Qingyi, and the others had grim expressions and heavy gazes. One had to know that Shen Hong had reached the peak of the Fourth Order Eternal Realm. But Chu Hen was only at the Third Order Eternal Realm, yet he could erupt with such shocking power. It was really unexpected. Roar! The raging bull's roar shook the sky. Shen Hong's aura increased exponentially. His eyes surged with a crimson color, and the killing intent between his brows grew stronger. A mere newcomer could actually be so extraordinary. If he was left alive, there would be endless troubles in the future. Raging rupture. Rumble, the wind roared furiously, and the true essence was like clouds. In a split second, the huge barbarian bull beast that enveloped Shen Hong's body was like a frightening monster that broke free from its iron chains. Its 4 hooves stepped on golden auspicious clouds, setting off a ferocious might that collided with the heavens, and directly charged towards Chu Hen. The rolling momentum that could topple mountains and overturn seas came crashing down. Wherever the golden raging bull went, the sky trembled and space cracked. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. Shen Hong probably wanted to kill Chu Hen. Looking at the raging bull, Chu Hen's eyes seemed to flash with silver arcs of lightning. Then, he condensed his palm in the void. Zap zap! In an instant, silver arcs of lightning flowed out of his body and gathered in front of his palm. Thunder rumbled in 3 directions and thousands of birds cried out. Every lightning pattern seemed to contain an incomparably violent and destructive power. The densely packed lightning patterns intertwined and fused, like rapidly brewing magma at the bottom of a volcano, quickly fusing into a ball of lightning. The ball of lightning expanded rapidly, and uncontrollable arcs of lightning lingered above and below the ball of lightning, emitting a manic sound. In the next instant, a ball of lightning with a diameter of more than 5 meters was formed. The terrifying energy was compressed to an extremely shocking density, and the lively arcs of lightning wantonly moved like fierce lightning snakes. What a terrifying aura! The faces of the new disciples turned pale, and their eyes were filled with fear. Anyone would be able to sense the destructive aura emanating from Chu Hen's palm. Rumble! In an instant, an extremely strong force erupted from Chu Hen's palm. Accompanied by the rolling momentum of thunder and wind, the ball of lightning in front of him instantly flew out, like a silver meteor crossing the sky, directly facing the charging golden raging bull. One side was as gorgeous as a divine beast, the other side was as bright as a star. Boom! The moment the two collided, thousands of rays of light erupted and dyed the entire heaven and earth. A violent and earth-shaking power erupted like a mountain flood, and a chaotic nebula vortex swept across the sky, under countless shocked gazes. The ball of lightning that contained endless power actually directly pierced through the huge body of the raging bull. Under the terrifying lightning energy, the barbarian bull-beast phantom exploded and was smashed into smithereens. What? Yang Rong and the others all turned pale with fright. Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingsai's eyes were also wide open. Rumble! After the majestic ball of lightning destroyed the raging bull, its momentum didn't decrease at all, and it once again charged at Shen Hong. The latter's pupils rapidly shrank to the size of a needle. His face was dyed a dazzling blue. Bang! An unprecedented earth-shattering noise rang out. The earth exploded and the 9 heavens split apart. That berserk ball of lightning directly exploded at Shen Hong's location. Countless lightning pillars exploded in the sky. The thunderstorm swept across the land, wreaking havoc in all directions. The terrifying cyclone that blotted out the sky and covered the earth shook the surrounding people until they couldn't stand steadily. Even the walls of the tower where the elephant boat was located had sharp cracks. Everyone's eyes widened. His heart was filled with a strong sense of fear. In the thunderstorm that swept across the heavenly river, a ruthless figure emitted a violent aura. His eyes were scarlet, and he looked like a wild beast. The veins on his arms bulged, and the blood vessels were clear. In his hand, he held a strange heavy hammer. The heavy hammer was about 2 meters wide, and its entire body flickered with dark red magma patterns. Rings of fiery red light emitted from the hammer, dense lightning arcs swam around Shen Hong and the heavy hammer in his hand. His eyes were ferocious and furious. "If this is all you've got, then I have to say sorry," Shen Hong shouted angrily. Yang Rong, Zhao Qingyi, and the others were shocked. That's the violent divine hammer? Oh my God! He even took out the violent divine hammer. This guy actually forced Shen Hong to this point. While everyone was in shock, tens of thousands of lightning tribulations descended from the sky above Chu Hen. "What's going on?" Clang! At the same time, gigantic bolts of lightning streaked across the sky one after another. They were like lightning pythons, and they quickly converged together. The wind and clouds roared, and thunder rumbled in all directions. Chi-chi! The frenzied noises interweaved, like thousands of thunderbirds spreading their wings and crying. As the terrifying lightning merged, Chu Hen's body glowed brightly. He turned into a ray of light and merged into the center of the lightning tribulations. An incomparably sharp attack came, and the divine lightning shrouded Shen Hong. Looking at Chu Hen, who had merged with the lightning, Shen Hong's eyes were cold, and a ruthless smile appeared on his face. Come on, Buzz." The magma patterns on the explosive divine hammer became extremely clear, and the surging red light emitted an extremely powerful energy fluctuation. However, right at this moment, a domineering 3-pronged halberd pierced through the incomparably gigantic lightning bolts. Thousands of lightning arcs intertwined on the body of the halberd. It was crystal clear and dazzling with blue light, as if it was formed from the essence of endless lightning. Chu Hen held the halberd with both hands, like a shaman spirit in charge of divine punishment. Accompanied by a destructive aura, Chu Hen swooped down like a pillar of lightning, and slashed at Shen Hong, who was emitting a violent aura, divine light blade. As the wind and lightning moved, the sky changed color. Streaks of lightning flashed across the 9 heavens. At the same time, Shen Hong raised the violent divine hammer in his hand, and a red ball of light spread out in front of him. Violent divine hammer! Boom! Bang! The lightning pillar that descended from the sky collided with the red hammer. Between heaven and earth, giant lightning webs that covered the sky and earth suddenly exploded. It was like a heavenly tribulation and a star colliding. The two extremely destructive forces shocked everyone present. The storm that swept in all directions wreaked havoc, and the majestic aftershocks swept towards the surrounding people. Everyone's heart trembled uneasily. Was this the power of a new disciple? Bang! Soon after, a peerless aura, strong and sharp lightning pillar shot out from within the chaotic energy storm. Everyone's pupils violently trembled. Because at the top of the lightning pillar, there was a panic-stricken figure. That is? Shen Hong? Boom! The lightning pillar that pierced through the sky smashed into the ground, along with the panic-stricken figure. Like a giant blade that had been nailed into the ground, the berserk energy impact caused a huge pit to open up in the ground. Shen Hong's clothes were in tatters, and he unwillingly fell to the ground. Chapter 1150. Boom! The majestic lightning pillar was like a giant nail that pierced through the heavens as it smashed Shen Hong into the ground, firmly smashing him into the ground. Violent shockwaves were like a tsunami that broke through a dam. The ground cracked and gravel broke into pieces. Along with the rapidly expanding crater in the ground, the flying gravel was like an endless swarm of locusts and moths. Sand and dust were everywhere, and a cyclone covered the sky. At this moment, the entire world seemed to have fallen into an unprecedented state of silence. Yang Rong, Zhao Qingyi, Zhao Qingkai, and the others were all at a loss. Everyone's heart trembled, and the shock in their hearts was at its peak. From Qi Xing to Shen Hong in this short period of time, Chu Hen had stunned the entire audience. In another pile of rubble, Qi Xing, who was covered in blood and in a sorry state, looked powerlessly and angrily at the young figure standing proudly in the air. As the number one genius among the newcomers, he had wanted to use this opportunity to shine. But who would have thought that he was as dim as a firefly? This guy. Zhao Qingsai's expression was complicated, and his eyes were filled with many complicated emotions. She was the most uneasy one. Since the first time they met in Hidden Sky City, she didn't like Chu Hen and even looked down on him. It was only at this moment that she realized that everyone was wrong. Qi Xing, Yang Rong, the other competitors, and even the entire sect were wrong. Such an outstanding genius wasn't selected, and he was almost rejected. All the newcomers present regretted their decision. Chu Hen, who was kicked out of the team, had single-handedly overturned the entire Interceptor team. Now, all of his success belonged to him alone. No one else had the right to share it. Swish! Chu Hen's figure flashed and he descended from the void. He raised his eyes slightly and walked straight to the rubble pit where Shen Hong was. The latter lay on the ground with an unwilling expression. His violent divine hammer was not far away, and the magma patterns on it had dimmed significantly. What do you want? Shen Hong stared at him uneasily. He supported his body with one hand and struggled to get up from the ground. Chu Hen gently stroked the tip of his nose with the tip of his finger, then pointed at the majestic and imposing elephant boat platform on the tower behind him. According to the rules of the game, I'm afraid senior brother Shen Hong still has something to give me. Everyone present was startled. Shen Hong's face was as pale as a sheet of paper. Chu Hen raised his hand and lifted the token with the two words, Beichen, engraved on it. On the back of the token, there were 5 rays of green light and 9 rays of red light, 590. No more, no less. He had obtained 164 star keys in one night in the swamp forest. Then, he snatched 426 of them from Qi Xing. It was the sum of the star keys of all the rookies participating in the battle for the star keys and the few obstructors. Shen Hong and the other 2 obstructors were so scared that their faces almost turned green when they saw the number that was close to 600. Chu Hen said calmly, according to the rules that you guys set, the reward is 10 times the number of star keys you currently have. So, 5,900 star keys, right? Wow. 5,900 star keys. Upon hearing this number, Shen Hong's mind was in a mess. He could not control his qi and blood surged, and he almost fainted. The other rookies around him could not help but feel their hearts skip a beat, and their limbs trembled. They were going crazy. Everyone only received 7 star keys a month. That was around 80 a year. In comparison, 5,900 star keys was a huge number. Chu Hen looked at Shen Hong and stretched out his hand. Give it to me. Shen Hong clenched his teeth and replied in a deep voice, I don't have that many star keys, you don't? Chu Hen laughed mockingly. Since you don't have any, why are you organizing the rookies' battle? Upon hearing this question, everyone present could not help but have an epiphany. The so-called rookies' battle was a trick used to cheat the rookies of their star keys. This was because the hope of the rookies winning was almost zero. Even if a few rookies could complete the mission, they would only obtain a few dozen star keys. Therefore, as far as the obstructors were concerned, this was a business that would only profit and not lose anything. However, who would have thought one would always encounter a ghost if they walked too much at night? In the end, they did not expect Chu Hen to suddenly appear out of nowhere. This accident had directly taken their old lives. Take out how many you have. A simple, I don't have, was not enough to dismiss Chu Hen. Shen Hong clenched his fists and unwillingly took out his token. On the back of the token, under the 2 words Western Dome, there were 2 rays of green, 3 rays of red, and 8 rays of silver light that flickered gently. Chu Hen raised an eyebrow and thought to himself, not bad, I still have 230 star keys. He did not hesitate to take Shen Hong's token and took everything. Shen Hong felt a wave of heartache. He had painstakingly accumulated these star keys after carrying out many sect missions and trading with other disciples. In just the blink of an eye, they had all fallen into someone else's hands. You too as well. Chu Hen looked at the other 2 obstructors who had been defeated by Qi Xing. Since even Shen Hong had been defeated, the 2 of them naturally did not dare to resist. They immediately took out their disciple tokens and gave them to Chu Hen. The 2 of them had over 100 star keys in total. Chu Hen took all 3 of their star keys, and the number of star keys he had increased to more than 900 once again. Yang Rong and the rest gulped in envy at the number of star keys he had. However, the star keys that Shen Hong and the other 2 had handed over were less than 1/10 of the 5,900 star keys he had. You still owe me over 5,000, Chu Hen said coldly. Shen Hong could not help but frown. He had already given Shen Hong all his star keys, but Shen Hong was still asking for a yard after giving him an inch. Since he had already given Shen Hong all his star keys, Shen Hong could not do anything to him. What else do you want? I don't even have 1 star key, let alone 5,000. Shen Hong had an attitude of, I don't have money, but I do have my life. The new disciples nearby also shook their head. At this point, Chu Hen indeed could not do anything to Shen Hong. Putting aside whether he could kill Shen Hong or not, even if he could, he would not be able to obtain the remaining stellar keys. However, just when everyone thought that Chu Hen could not do anything and was about to give in, something unexpected happened. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold as he suddenly extended his palm toward another spot on the ground. Following an astonishing suction force, with a whoosh, the violent divine hammer that had fallen to the ground directly landed in Chu Hen's hand. Leave it with me. You can take it back when you've paid off the remaining star keys. You. Shen Hong's expression changed drastically. No, the violent godly hammer is my family's divine weapon. Give it back to me. Chu Hen sneered. Divine weapon? That's even better. Come and look for me when you've collected the remaining star keys. As soon as Chu Hen finished speaking, he moved his palm. A white light flashed and the violent divine hammer disappeared from his hand. Shen Hong was completely dumbfounded when he saw Chu Hen taking the hammer away. His arrogant and haughty attitude from before had disappeared. His anger rose again as he spat out a mouthful of blood. He staggered and fell to the ground. However, Chu Hen did not show any mercy when he saw this. Not long ago, Shen Hong had wanted to take his life. Moreover, they were the ones who came up with the rules, so they had to bear the consequences themselves. Chu Hen did not care about anyone and turned around to walk in the direction he came from. The entire place was silent. They looked at each other in astonishment. Chu Hen's actions had once again broken their bottom line. Looking at the young figure that was gradually disappearing, everyone shook their heads and sighed. Chapter 1151. On the day when the newcomers' fight for supremacy and the Star Key competition ended, the incident at Elephant Boat Station was like a storm that could not be suppressed. In just a day, it swept through the entire martial sect like a plague. East Profound, West Sky, South Spirit, North Star, the 4 great peak academies were in a huge uproar. Hey, did you hear? The newcomers fight for supremacy and the interceptors completely collapse. What do you mean by completely collapsed? That can only be described as tragic. The star keys of the 13 interceptors were all snatched by the newcomers. Not only the interceptors, but the star keys of the other newcomers were also taken. I heard that person was chased out of the team by Qi Xing before the competition started. In the end, TSK. Qi Xing couldn't even take one hit from that person. That's great. A total of 5,900 star keys was created in one go. That's a huge sum of money. However, I heard that even Shen Hong's family's divine weapon, the violent godly hammer, was taken away. Without the violent godly hammer, I'm afraid his plan to enter the Heaven Martial Leaderboard will have to be put on hold. What's that newcomer's name again? Chu Hen. I think it's this one. Chu Hen? What a familiar name. Could it be the newcomer who has a martial tactic innate talent that surpasses the 9th grade but doesn't even have a profound body bloodline? That's right, it's him. The stormy waves that had just quietened down for a short while surged violently once again. Just over 2 months ago, the newcomer with a huge gap in martial tactic innate talent and bloodline boundary was already known by everyone before he even arrived at the sect. Just when everyone was about to forget about him, the commotion that came out of nowhere once again shocked everyone in the martial sect. This was the first rookie in history to defeat all the seniors with his own strength. He was also the first newcomer to obtain more than 900 star keys in his first month in the sect. The most shocking thing about him was his unfathomable cultivation base. Even Shen Hong, who was preparing to enter the Heaven Martial Leaderboard, was defeated by him. Just thinking about it was unbelievable. Sky Observation Peak. In a quiet and peaceful cave abode, Chu Hen quietly sat on the stone platform. In front of him was a stone wall with a series of complicated runes and numbers engraved on it. Strings of characters and numbers swayed and flickered with a gentle light. As he stared at those characters, Chu Hen's eyes were as deep as a vast ocean. Within his eyes, it was as if there was a vast and endless starry cosmos within them. Buzz, buzz. Suddenly, a strange energy fluctuation overflowed from Chu Hen's body. He slowly raised his hands, palms facing each other, and the tips of his index fingers and thumbs touched. Then, thousands of strands of blue gossamer optical fibers flowed out from between Chu Hen's fingers. It was like the blue silk net floating in the air. A rapid wave of air spread out, and those strands of blue light quickly gathered in front of his palms. It was like a ball rolling on a string. Under Chu Hen's precise control, a rhombus-shaped blue crystal energy body quietly gathered in front of Chu Hen. Every edge of the rhombus-shaped crystal was especially distinct. The seemingly pure rhombus-shaped crystal contained a shockingly large amount of energy. Soon, the rhombus-shaped crystal became the size of an adult's fist. It was luxurious, dazzling, and dazzling. It was so dazzling that it was like the emerald spirit pearl that had been fused with the sacred radiance of thousands of stars. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and a bright luster surged between his brows. Buzz, his aura faintly trembled again, and the rhombus-shaped crystal slowly lost its luxurious luster. Then, it shattered in his palms, turning into thousands of crystal shards. Every shard that floated out directly drew a deep mark on the stone wall and the ground. What a shocking amount of energy! Chu Hen slightly narrowed his eyes, inwardly shocked. Although the blue rhombus-shaped crystal was small, it compressed a very large amount of energy. It could easily pierce through steel plates. Even a single shard was sharper than a steel knife. The North Star Mantra really deserves to be the #1 technique in the North Star Peak Academy. I wonder what kind of shocking scene it will be after I master it. Chu Hen lightly muttered. Looking at the runes and numbers on the wall, his face surged with anticipation. Now that I have over 900 star keys, I have enough time to cultivate in the astral dream realm. Cultivating the North Star Mantra, there will definitely be twice the result with half the effort. As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Hen stood up and patted the wrinkles on his clothes. He once again used the concealment rune technique to cover the contents on the wall, and then he left the abode. After leaving the Sky Observation Peak, Chu Hen headed in the direction of the Sky Marshal Peak. However, halfway there, he changed his direction and first descended on a beautiful mountain range that was filled with spirit energy. At the peak of the mountain range there was a courtyard built. Although the courtyard was not big, it was very clean and elegant. There was a rock garden, a pergola, a pond. The environment was much better than the Sky Observation Peak that Chu Hen resided in. Just when Chu Hen was about to step into the courtyard, a tall and beautiful figure walked out from behind the door. When she saw Chu Hen, a trace of a smile couldn't help but gush out from her long and narrow red phoenix eyes. "You've come. I was just about to go to your place." Long Xuanxuang spoke as she walked towards Chu Hen. Chu Hen smiled. "The place you live in isn't bad. The environment is much better than mine." Long Xuanxuang rolled her eyes at him. "I told you to come with me earlier, but you insisted on staying there. It's not too late to regret it now." Chu Hen lightly sniffed as he swept the surroundings with his gaze. "Where's little Yao? Why don't I see her?" A trace of bewilderment surged out from Long Xuanxuang's eyes. "I don't know either. She's been leaving early and returning late every day for the past few days. I haven't really seen her." "Oh?" Chu Hen was stunned. However, during this period of time, many of the higher-ups of Beichen Peak Academy's elders have come to look for her, saying that they want to take her as their direct disciple. Perhaps she found it annoying, so she hid out. Long Xuanxuang guessed. Chu Hen was a little surprised, and he couldn't help but smile. This girl is so popular now. Speaking of which, it was normal. Yi Yao's martial arts talent had reached the 8th level, and the limit of her bloodline was a high-grade Saint Physique. Moreover, it was the extremely rare Tai Chi Saint Physique, a mutated bloodline physique that wielded the power of yin and yang. There was no doubt that her potential was great. It was not without reason that she was valued by the higher-ups. In comparison, although Long Xuanxuang's martial arts talent had reached the higher 9th level, the limit of her mystic physique bloodline was a shortcoming that was difficult to make up for. Unless she could complete the evolution of her bloodline in the future, she would be at a disadvantage in terms of achievements. "By the way, I heard that you participated in the rookie competition?" Long Xuanxuang suddenly asked. "Yes." Chu Hen nodded. However, Long Xuanxuang shook her head helplessly. "I've caused so much trouble again. I really can't rest for a day." Chu Hen rubbed his nose in embarrassment. No matter what level his cultivation had reached, it was as if in the eyes of Long Xuanxuang, he was still the little fellow who had always followed behind her when she was young. When everyone was talking about how Chu Hen had obtained the Star Key and defeated Shen Hong, Qi Xing and the other geniuses, Long Xuanxuang was more concerned about Chu Hen's own safety and situation. He had just arrived at the martial sect, and he had already caused such a huge commotion. For a newcomer who had just arrived, it was somewhat inappropriate. "All right, don't be angry. Let's go to Heaven Marshal Peak," Chu Hen said. "I'm not angry," Long Xuanxuang replied, her beautiful eyes slightly rippling, her red lips slightly parted, and she said softly, "I'm just afraid that you will get hurt." "I know that." Chu Hen revealed a clean and bright smile. As he turned around, he extended his hand to Long Xuanxuang. "Give me your disciple token." "What for?" "Just give it to me." Long Xuanxuang was a little confused. She casually took out a token and placed it in his hand. Chu Hen took the token and fiddled with it for a while, before quickly returning it to her. After Long Xuanxuang took back the token, she realized that the token that originally only had a few streaks of silver light lines now had a green streak of light on the back of it. "This is?" Long Xuanxuang's mouth slightly opened in surprise. Chu Hen smiled. "Let's go to Heaven Marshal Peak." Chapter 1152. Sky Marshal Peak. It was bustling with activity as people came and went. The Sky Marshall Peak Plaza in the morning was the most crowded time of the day. Especially in the past 2 days, it was especially lively. When Chu Hen and Long Xuanxuang arrived at the Sky Tower Plaza, they felt the gazes from the surroundings. There was curiosity, bewilderment, and a little admiration. He's Chu Hen. Wow, he's so young. I'm afraid he's only in his early 20s? I can't believe Shin Hong was defeated by him. Who's the woman next to him? TSK, she's so beautiful. With her looks, I'm afraid she can even compete with senior sister Qianing. Long Xuanxuang shook her head helplessly when she felt the whispers from the surroundings. Chu Hen, on the other hand, lightly said in a disapproving tone, "Don't bother with them." Long Xuanxuang nodded and did not say anything. Let me tell you guys, junior brother Chu Hen was recruited by me, Wu Mian, to Beichen Peak Academy. At that time, Wu Mian, knew he wasn't an ordinary person the moment I saw him. That's why I spent a lot of effort to bring him into our Beichen Peak Academy. What's this called? This is called Bo Lu recognizing a horse of 1,000 li. Me too. Did you guys know? A few days ago, Chu Hen took the initiative to join my proud Sky team. But who am I, Ding Xiaoyun? Do you think I, Ding Xiaoyun, can just let anyone join the team that I've painstakingly built? That's why I rejected his request. What the hell is your proud Sky team? Let me tell you, when junior brother Chu Hen participated in the rookie competition, I gave him the star key. If it wasn't for my help, I'm afraid he wouldn't even be able to participate in the rookie competition, let alone defeat Shin Hong and Qi Xing. In the front of the crowd, Wu Mian and Ding Xiaoyun were bragging. There were quite a number of people surrounding them, and all of them were stunned when they heard this. Are you guys talking about me? Hearty laughter came from behind. Wu Mian and Ding Xiaoyun, who were bragging with a group of people, were immediately startled. When they turned around to look at Chu Hen, who was walking over with Long Xuanxuang, everyone revealed astonished gazes. Wu Mian immediately walked over with a grin. Junior brother Chu Hen, junior sister Xian Shuang. You've come at the right time. Hurry up and tell them if I'm the one who brought you into Beichen Peak Academy. As your guide, I'll see who dares to call me Wu Mian the second Wu from now on. Wu Mian could be said to be in high spirit. Xiao Yu's smug look was a little comical. Ding Xiaoyun, on the other hand, was drenched in cold sweat. He rolled his eyes and immediately retreated to the back. Brothers, I still have something to do. I'll take my leave first. After he finished speaking, he turned around and fled. This guy, why did he run away just like that? Wu Mian shook his head in confusion, then turned his gaze towards Chu Hen who was beside him. Junior brother Chu Hen, are you going to the Dream Star Realm? I'll go with you. Also, I've already applied to the Elder for a change of residence for you. Soon, you'll be able to leave that *TTY place, Sky Observation Peak. Didn't you say before that I couldn't arrange it? Long Xuanxuang said with slight dissatisfaction. This, Wu Mian smiled awkwardly. For ordinary newcomers, it was indeed not qualified to arrange a place to cultivate. However, after the commotion caused by the newcomers competing for supremacy, the higher-ups of Beichen Peak Academy had already begun to pay attention to Chu Hen. At this time, Wu Mian struck while the iron was hot to report to the higher-ups about Chu Hen's various situations. With such a disciple with such potential, they naturally would not allow him to continue staying in Sky Observation Peak, a place that lacked spiritual energy. However, Chu Hen rejected the other party. There's no need for that. I'll stay in Sky Observation Peak for the time being. The moment he said that, Wu Mian and Long Xuanxuang looked at each other in confusion. Why? Wu Mian asked. I'm already used to that place. I'll just stay there for the time being. Chu Hen did not want to explain too much. The reason was very simple. It was naturally for the North Star Mantra's secret tome in the cave abode. Moreover, he had so many star keys in his hands now. At least for the next 2 to 3 years, he could stay in the starry dream almost every day to cultivate. In comparison, those residences that were rich in spiritual energy seemed insignificant. All right. You decide. Wu Mian did not continue to persuade him. Subsequently, the three of them chatted as they passed through the square of the high sky platform. Apart from the martial sect's disciples going back and forth between the starry dream and the starry dream, there were also many disciples who used this period of time to do business. More than 10 disciples were squatting on both sides of the aisle. In front of them were a few stalks of spiritual medicine or a few pieces of spiritual stones. These were used to exchange for star keys. The three of them did not pay too much attention to this. However, at this moment, 2 familiar figures and voices entered Chu Hen's sight. Aren't you being too ruthless? 3 blazing meteorites only gave us 5 star keys. Outside, the price of a single blazing meteorite is easily over 1 billion high-grade origin crystal stones. With our high purity, even if we offered 2 billion, there would still be people fighting over it. Humph. I say, second Miss Zhao, do you still think this is your hidden sky city? I've already given you enough face by giving you 5 star keys. I'll only give you 1 more at most. Do you want it or not? You're so infuriating. Brother, we don't want it anymore. Zhao Qingkai was so angry that his little face turned red. His big eyes were almost spitting fire. Zhao Qingyi, who was at the side, sighed helplessly. She then said to the young man in front of her, "Give us 6 star keys." Brother. Zhao Qingkai was slightly unwilling. However, Zhao Qingyi still shook her head. Because of the competition between the newcomers, they had lost all the star keys they had. There were still over 20 days until the next month. In these 20 days, they could not just rely on absorbing the heaven and earth spirit energy to cultivate. The competition in the martial ancestor realm was well known. Especially the Eastern Profound Peak Academy that they were in, it was a gathering of dragons. To the newcomers who had just arrived, it was very easy for them to be drowned in the crowd of geniuses. Therefore, even if they suffered a loss, they could only endure it. That's more like it. The young man sneered with slight complacency. Just as Zhao Qingyi handed over the 3 dark red ores with neatly carved patterns, a young figure with extraordinary aura suddenly walked in front of her. "Give them to me. I want these 3 yuan meteor stones." Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingkai were both startled. The young man who was about to trade frowned. "Who the F***ck are you? You dare to snatch my things? Hey! Senior brother, how can you speak like that?" Wu Mian, who was behind him, hurriedly responded. "Humph." The young man snorted coldly and said disdainfully, "I want to see how many star keys you're willing to pay for these 3 pieces of trash." He then said to Zhao Qingyi, "Let me tell you, if you don't sell them to me today, I won't take them even if you offer 5 star keys next time." Zhao Qingyi was slightly embarrassed. Before she could speak, Chu Hen had already received the 3 yuan meteor stones in her hand and casually put them into his storage ring. "I want them. Give me your disciple token." Zhao Qingyi hesitated slightly, but still handed over a token with the words "Eastern Profound" carved on it to him. Chu Hen smiled lightly and received the token in her hand, then took out his disciple token. The 2 tokens faced each other, and a wave of magnificent patterns flickered. In the next instant, the people at the side all stared with their eyes wide open. That shameless and arrogant young man was so scared that his face turned ashen. He looked at Chu Hen in front of him with a face of shock. In the blink of an eye, the Dongxian token that had been empty just a second ago had 2 green streaks of vertical light streaking across it. Whoosh! The air around them seemed to tremble. 200 star keys. The young man stuttered in shock. Looking at the token opposite him, there were more than 600 star keys. The number of star keys almost blinded him. Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingkai were equally shocked. The difference between 6 star keys and 200 star keys was like the difference between the heavens and the earth. The former said rather agitatedly, "Brother Chu, you? Chu Hen smiled gently and returned the token to him. A trade. Brother Zhao, don't think it's too little. Too little? How was that possible? Any fool could see that Chu Hen was actually giving them 200 star keys. But, there's no need to say anything more, Brother Zhao. If you don't accept it, it means that you're looking down on me, Chu Hen. Chu Hen's tone was firm. Truth be told, Chu Hen was rather grateful to Zhao Qingyi. When Qi Xing and the rest chased him away during the newcomer championship, Zhao Qingyi was the only one who spoke up for Chu Hen and offered to pay a portion of the star keys for him. Then there was Zhao Qingyi's father, Zhao Xuanxiong. Without Zhao Xuanxiong's help, Chu Hen might not have been able to send Xiao Shaowan to the Butterfly Clan in time. If there had been any delay, the consequences would have been unimaginably severe. Therefore, these 200 star keys could be said to be a form of repayment to the Zhao family. Zhao Qingyi gritted her teeth and nodded solemnly. If that's the case, I'll accept it shamelessly. Zhao Qinkai, who was standing at the side, had a complicated expression on his face. She had thought that Chu Hen was here to humiliate her. She had never imagined that this would be the result. There was no mockery in Chu Hen's eyes, only sincerity. Zhao Qingsai's heart was filled with mixed feelings as she recalled everything she had done to Chu Hen. It was as if she had fallen into a quagmire and could not struggle free. She bit her lip and could only speak in a soft voice. I'm sorry, I was wrong before. Chu Hen smiled. It's all right, I won't take it to heart. Zhao Qingsai's heartstrings trembled as she looked at Chu Hen's handsome face. She did not dare to meet Chu Hen's gaze. The young man who had handed over 6 star keys had long since shrunk back in fear. Just as Chu Hen and Zhao Qinkai were about to bury the hatchet, a huge commotion suddenly broke out on the other side of the Tianwu Peak Plaza. A rapid wave of air surged in their direction. The hearts of everyone present were shocked, and they revealed puzzled expressions. The sound of noisy footsteps was getting closer and closer. Under everyone's astonished gazes, a dozen or so figures with imposing auras walked straight towards Chu Hen's direction under the spectators on both sides. It's Shen Hong and the rest. Zhao Qingyi immediately saw Shen Hong and the rest walking in front of her. However, even more people's gazes were gathered on the person in the lead. He was high-spirited and extraordinary. He exuded an elegant scholarly aura, but there was a hint of sharpness in his deep eyes. The two conflicting auras were reflected on a single person. Wu Mian frowned and his expression changed. It's the Shao Alliance of the West Dome Peak, the Shao Alliance. The top genius ranked 11th on the Tianwu leaderboard. Chapter 1153. West Dome Peak, Shao Alliance. On the Heaven Marshal list, he was ranked 11th. The appearance of the other party immediately caused an intense uproar on the Tianwu Peak. Everyone in the room cast surprised and astonished gazes in their direction. What is Shao Alliance's senior brother doing here? I heard that he's preparing to break through in seclusion? Looking at his direction, he seems to be heading to Chu Hen's place. Could it be that he's looking for trouble with Chu Hen? That's possible. Look, Shen Hong is there too. He's most likely here to stand up for him. Noisy footsteps could be heard from afar. A formless pressure filled the air. Zhao Qingyi, Long Xuanshuang, Zhao Qinkai and the rest's expressions changed and turned solemn. Wu Mian wrinkled his eyebrows. He turned his body and glanced at Chu Hen, who had an indifferent gaze. He said with some confusion, "There's no reason. Why would Shao Alliance's senior brother interfere in this matter?" However, just as everyone expected, the Shao Alliance, Shen Hong and the others stopped in front of Chu Hen and the others. The flow of air was a little rapid. The sunlight shone down from the heavens, dazzling. The other people in the surroundings quickly gathered over. They were all astonished at the sight of such a formation. He, Shao Alliance's senior brother, what's the matter? Wu Mian hurriedly smiled and greeted. However, before he could even get close to the other party, he was pushed back by a shameless and arrogant young man. This has nothing to do with you. Go away. Wu Mian smiled awkwardly and said, Shao Alliance's senior brother, is there a misunderstanding? You came here personally. However, Xiao Meng did not even look at Wu Mian. Her gaze was directly raised towards Chu Hen as a leisurely smile rose from the corner of her mouth. Not bad. Chu Hen raised his brows and a hint of frivolity appeared in his eyes. I wonder which matter Shao Alliance's senior brother is referring to? Which matter? It wasn't hard to tell that Chu Hen's words had a hidden meaning. Zhao Qingyi, Zhao Qingkai and the rest had a confused look on their faces. Could it be that the two of them had crossed paths before? Humph, don't play dumb here. Shen Hong shouted, pointing angrily at Chu Hen with bloodshot eyes. Glancing at Shen Hong indifferently, Chu Hen smiled and continued, Looks like senior brother Shao Alliance has come to stand up for senior brother Shen Hong. I had thought that you had come to find me because of the forest sacrifice forest matter, forest ritual jungle? Everyone was startled. A cold glint flashed across Xiao Meng's eyes. Hee, I don't understand what you're talking about. The other party's answer was within Chu Hen's expectations. He would never admit to it. Even so, Chu Hen was 100% sure that the people who ambushed him in Silent Hill were definitely related to the Shao Alliance, senior brother of the Shao Alliance. Wu Mian continued to dissuade him. Both parties are willing to participate in the rookies' competition, and they have to bear the consequences. If you interfere in this matter, won't it affect your status? Xiao Meng finally glanced at Wu Mian lazily. Then, he looked into Chu Hen's eyes with his deep and sharp eyes. It's indeed not my business when it comes to the rookies' competition. However, please return the clan relic weapon that you snatched from Shen Hong. Everyone's eyes quickly gathered on Chu Hen. Moreover, Wu Mian kept signaling Chu Hen with his eyes to admit defeat. Chu Hen rubbed his nose and replied gently, Since senior brother Xiao Meng has spoken, I naturally don't dare to say no. However, senior brother Shen Hong, please return the 5,000 plus star keys that you owe me first. 5,000 plus star keys. Xiao Meng's face was slightly cold. Even he could not take out so many star keys. Moreover, he did not plan to do so. That's a different matter. I'll return the star keys I owe you in the future. I'm afraid it's a little too much for you to take his clan relic weapon for yourself. It's only right to repay a debt. Since senior brother Shen Hong can't take out 5,000 star keys, what's wrong with me using his violent godly hammer as a pledge? I don't want to take his item for myself. As long as he gives me the star keys he owes me, I'll naturally hand over the violent godly hammer. Then, Xiao Meng's eyes turned cold and his voice became much colder. What if I insist on you returning it? There was a hint of threat in his cold voice. A formless and majestic aura swept out and everyone's faces turned pale. Return, return, return. Wu Mian immediately stood up and smiled apologetically. Senior brother Xiao Meng, please calm down. I'll persuade him right now. As soon as he finished speaking, he walked in front of Chu Hen and anxiously persuaded in a low voice, Boss, don't try to show off at this time. A wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. Admit defeat first. If you offend Xiao Meng, you'll suffer in the sect in the future. Wu Mian, who grew up in the martial sect, was very clear about this. Anyone on the heaven martial ranking was not to be trifled with. Even though Chu Hen's reputation had risen in the past 2 days, it was still far from being comparable to the 15 people on the heaven martial ranking. No matter which side was in the right or wrong, the higher-ups of the sect would only stand on Xiao Meng's side. Long Xuanshuang also looked at Chu Hen worriedly, but she did not say anything. She was very clear that Chu Hen did not need to listen to other people's opinions at times like this. It's fine if you can't take out 5,000 star keys, Chu Hen said. Wu Mian felt relieved when he heard that. He finally listened to him. However, in the next second, the corners of Chu Hen's mouth curled up slightly and his tone suddenly became higher. Take out the 4 souls that you obtained from the immortal and devil tomb and exchange for it. Wow! As soon as he said that, there was an uproar. Everyone looked at Chu Hen as if they were looking at a monster. Wu Mian felt a headache coming on. This guy was simply too insensible. There was no end to his arrogance. 4 souls. Back in the immortal and devil tomb, 24 blood demon guards were resurrected in the devil tomb of the Yama King. Moreover, 4 souls had appeared. They were the 4 souls of the ice element that had been taken away by Xiaomeng. The 4 souls of the wood element that had been taken away by profound Yang Palace's fatal elegance, Lu Wiyue. The 4 souls of the slaughter soul that had been taken away by firmament gathering pavilion's 10-feathered demon blade, Li Yanqing. And the 4 souls of the desolation that had fallen into the hands of sky holding sword finger, Li Yuanliang. The 4 soul spirits were divine treasures refined by the Yama King with his supreme power. If it was before, Chu Hen did not know what they were used for. However, after obtaining Yama King's power, Chu Hen more or less understood how powerful and magical the 4 souls were. Therefore, what Chu Hen said just now was not a casual remark. If you want the violent divine hammer back, you'll have to exchange for it with your 4 souls. Chu Hen's attitude was especially firm. He stared coldly at Xiaomeng's face that was gradually turning gloomy, without any fear. Chapter 1154. Then you can, scram now, scram. The heavy and clear words were transmitted to everyone's ears, instantly deafening like thunder. Wu Mian, Zhao Qingyi, Zhao Qingkai, and everyone else's faces changed greatly, as if a huge wave was set off in everyone's heart, telling Xiaomeng to scram? A newbie who had entered the sect for less than a month, directly told the 11th ranked person on the heaven marshal list to scram in front of everyone? Arrogance, these 2 words could no longer be used to describe Chu Hen. A wave of piercingly cold wind swept in all directions. Xiaomeng's face was dark and ashen. Ha 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 ha! He was so angry that he laughed, raising his finger to point at Chu Hen. If you have the guts, do you dare to say it again? Chu Hen showed no fear, his eyes as deep as the stars. The other party had already bullied him, why should he give them any face? His throat lightly moved, coldly spitting out a few words. 11th on the heaven marshal list, what is there to be afraid of? Arrogant, domineering. In an instant, a piercingly cold air spread out like frost, instantly dropping the temperature of heaven and earth to freezing point. Xiaomeng's eyes turned cold. Courting death. As soon as he finished speaking, Shen Hong and the rest beside him directly exploded out with a vigorous aura, directly charging towards Chu Hen. Beside Chu Hen, Long Xuan and Zhao Qingyi also did not hesitate to release their powerful true inner energy. But before they could make a move, a gentle and soft force directly pushed them back. There is no need for you to interfere, Chu Hen's indifferent voice entered their ears. Then, the corner of his eyes narrowed, glancing sideways at the menacing Shen Hong and the rest. Chu Hen disdainfully sneered. 1 foot on the ground, Hua. A purple flame wall suddenly rose into the sky, like a tsunami that rushed to the horizon, immediately blocking in front of the people in front. The surrounding people quickly retreated, afraid of being caught in the crossfire. Buzz, Shen Hong revealed a ruthless expression. He clasped his palms together and condensed a solid blade. He chopped down with the power to split the heavens, and a several-meter-long gap was immediately cut open in the purple wall of flames in front of him. But in the next moment they felt the ground beneath their feet tremble violently. Clang! Boom! Before they could react, a majestic pillar of lightning suddenly broke through the ground, piercing through the surface of the stage and piercing upwards. It was like a sharp wooden stake, or a peerlessly ferocious thunder dragon and lightning python. They crisscrossed and moved wantonly. As Shen Hong and the others dodged in a panic, the lightning bolts brushed past them one after another. However, right after that, the purple flames that were spreading wantonly stirred violently like a storm. As the demonic flames intertwined with the lightning, an even more berserk power of lightning and fire was produced, A shower of sparks clashed against each other. The demonic flame storm was like an erupting volcano, exploding in the center of Shun Hong and the others. Hiss! The momentum shook the heavens, and the cyclone was like a tide. A vast and majestic shock wave spread out, accompanied by the rapid cracking of the stone stage on the ground. Several panicked figures were directly thrown out, and miserably smashed onto the ground. What a powerful force! The surrounding people were secretly shocked. Shun Hong, who had lost his violent divine hammer, could not even take a single blow from Chu Hen. Humph, insignificant tricks. Xiao Meng's expression was cold, and an astonishing aura immediately leaked out from his body. His figure moved and he flew towards Chu Hen. Circles of condensed true origin energy lingered around his body, like a layer of gorgeous armor. You came at the right time. Chu Hen coldly laughed. Facing Xiao Meng, who was charging at him, a layer of black flames like the 9 underworld flames covered his arm, and he punched out. Buzz! The space violently trembled, and a black fist pillar exploded out, directly piercing the other party's head. The speed was so fast, and the power was so strong that even the air was rubbing against it, creating a ball of sparks. Xiao Meng's pupils shrank, and he immediately stretched out his palm to meet the black fist pillar that was charging at him. Bang! As the tyrannical palm energy collided with the tyrannical fist beam, a violent cyclone of shock waves suddenly erupted. Fragments of true essence splashed out in all directions, and a wild airflow surged towards the two people. What was even more surprising was that after this punch, Chu Hen still stood in the same place without falling. The ground under his feet shattered inch by inch, and the stones turned into powder. However, Chu Hen did not even bend his body. He's actually completely fine? The surrounding people all had grim expressions, and their hearts were filled with shock. Is this guy's strength really only at the 3rd order of the Eternal Realm? Isn't he a little too strong? No wonder he dared to provoke senior brother Xiao Meng. Don't say that too early. Senior brother Xiao Meng's cultivation is at the 6th order of the Eternal Realm, and he also has the bloodline boundary of the heaven-capturing holy body. His strength can even fight against experts at the 7th order of the Eternal Realm, so it's not a problem for him to deal with a newbie. That's true. Although that Chu Hen defeated Shun Hong, who was preparing to enter the Heaven Martial Leaderboard, he still hasn't entered the Heaven Martial Leaderboard. The gap between the two of them is still huge. Everyone had different thoughts. Without a doubt, the majority of people were still on Xiao Meng's side. As an existence ranked 11th on the Heaven Martial Leaderboard, countless disciples looked up to him. No matter how strong Chu Hen was, he was still no match for him. I'd like to see what you have to be so arrogant in front of me. Buzz! As soon as he finished speaking, a shocking majestic aura suppressed the entire place, and strange runes and secret scrolls suddenly appeared in Xiao Meng's body. The bloodline aura that originated from the extraordinary holy body was released. Everyone's heart couldn't help but tremble. They didn't expect Xiao Meng to use the power of the bloodline boundary so quickly. It seemed like he planned to end the battle in the shortest time possible. Gorgeous light patterns wandered on Xiao Meng's arms, luxurious and bright, changing unpredictably. A twisted light pattern floated on his palms, and he looked down at Chu Hen, who was below, and then both palms reached down, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In an instant, streaks of rapidly moving golden iron wires suddenly exploded from his palms. An iron chain that was glowing with golden light swooped down like a golden python, and at the front of the iron chain, there was a hook and sickle wrapped around it. The sharp hook and sickle iron chain tore through the air and came down. Chu Hen's eyes narrowed slightly, and his body moved, instantly leaping away from where he was. Bang! In the next second, the straight hook and sickle iron chain was like a long nail that pierced through the sky, with a strong penetrating force, deeply embedded into the ground. I'd like to see where you can run to. As soon as he finished speaking, one hook and sickle iron chain after another, emitting a cold aura, pierced through the air, like a steel fork in the hands of a fisherman, constantly attacking Chu Hen below. Every iron chain pierced through the air, emitting a dark and vicious aura. Bang, 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 a series of heavy muffled sounds reverberated from the ground, and iron chains stood in disorder around Chu Hen. Xiaoming sneered, and a chill surged in his eyes. Rise, rumble! Suddenly, dozens of iron chains that went deep into the ground tightened at the same time, and together with a terrifying force that could uproot mountains and rivers, with Chu Hen as the center, the stone platform with a radius of nearly 100 meters was directly separated from the Lingshao platform square. Chapter 1155. Rumble, the ground trembled and the stone platform cracked. Dozens of metal chains that were buried deep in the ground tightened. Accompanied by flying dust and stone fragments, a terrifying power that could uproot mountains and rivers instantly erupted from Xiaomeng's arm. In an instant, the ground within 100 meters of where Chu Hen stood was like a suspended meteorite, forcefully separated from the ground of the plaza and directly separated. The faces of everyone present turned pale with fright when they saw this scene, and their eyes opened wide. What a terrifying power! Senior brother Xiaomeng is indeed a top figure on the heavenly martial list. This power is simply too powerful. This time, Chu Hen has directly hit an iron plate. Let's see how senior brother Xiaomeng teaches him how to be a person. Zhao Qingyi and Long Xuanshuang had grave expressions on their faces as they looked at the piece of land that Xiaomeng had pulled out. Big brother, what should we do? Zhao Qingkai was also a little worried. Compared to the previous rejection and ridicule, Zhao Qingkai was now completely on Chu Hen's side. Wu Mian, who was standing to the side, turned his small eyes. You guys wait here first, I'll go call for help now. After he finished speaking, he immediately turned around and ran away like a wisp of smoke. The stone platform that was suspended in the air was rapidly being pulled by dozens of metal chains. Xiaomeng stood in the air, his eyes cold and disdainful as he stared at the young figure on the stone platform below. I'll give you one more chance. Do you want to obediently hand over the violent divine hammer, or do you want me to do it myself? Standing on the floating stone platform, Chu Hen's expression did not change. Instead, a trace of ridicule appeared on the corner of his mouth. I'm afraid it's a little too early for you to be happy, Buzz. A heavy and majestic aura abruptly leaked out from Chu Hen's left palm. Gorgeous and luxurious starlight surrounded his palm like a pair of wings of light. In an instant, Chu Hen's entire arm seemed to be bathed in endless starlight. On his palm, 7 light spots connected one after another, forming the pattern of the Big Dipper. Sensing the powerful aura released by Chu Hen, Xiaomeng's eyes narrowed. Then, with a thought, he retracted his 5 fingers, and an extremely powerful force of control howled through the air. Bang, bang, bang! The stone platform that was suspended in the air once again quickly split open. Dozens of ice-cold and gloomy iron chains were like blades that split open the surface of ice. From all directions, from every corner, they rapidly swept towards Chu Hen, who was in the middle. Deep ravines and cracks quickly appeared on the stone platform. The area where Chu Hen was located was shrinking rapidly. Every strike of the iron chain contained a destructive force that could sweep away mountains and rivers. Almost at the same time, Chu Hen's pupils were pulsating with divine starlight. A resplendent pillar of light that pierced through the heavens suddenly erupted from Chu Hen's palm. Astral Soul 7 explosive strikes. The pattern of the Big Dipper on his palm shone brilliantly. The majestic starlight pillar soared into the sky like a giant sword soaring through the sky. It swept up an endless violent and destructive force as it bombarded towards Xiaomeng's location. Dark chains interweaved with each other, and gorgeous starlight pillars pierced through the sky. Boom! An incomparably loud and heavy sound reverberated in the sky above Tianwu Peak. The spectacular scene was comparable to an exploding star. The starlight beam collided with the dark iron chains, and thousands of starlight bloomed in the sky. The iron chains were pulled taut, the stone platform that was suspended in the air shattered inch by inch. Boom! A deafening explosion sounded. Under the shocked gazes of everyone present, the entire stone platform that was suspended in midair was instantly blasted apart. The dozens of dark metal chains had also completely collapsed and broken apart. Broken stones filled the sky, mixed with the violent shockwave, whistled through the air. The surrounding people were shaken by the shockwave, and they took a few steps back. Even so, everyone's eyes were glued to the sky in front of them, and they didn't even blink. Dust filled the sky, and cyclones intertwined. High up in the sky, two figures with extraordinary auras were like two meteors that had unexpectedly met, and they collided with each other. Bang! The vigorous and chaotic true essence exploded, and the space shook violently. Facing the palm energy head-on, the two of them quickly retreated. Humph! As he moved, a sinister smile appeared on Xiao Meng's face, and he coldly stared at Chu Hen's handsome and determined face. "I'm afraid you don't have the qualifications to fight with me." As soon as he finished speaking, a vast and majestic force suddenly swept towards Chu Hen. A vast wave of true essence surged out, and Xiao Meng raised his hand. Following that, his blood vessels bulged and his tendons bulged. Strange runes appeared on his arm like ancient patterns. It was like the hand of a demon, and it emitted a shocking aura. That is, the faces of the martial arts faction disciples changed again. Could it be that Senior Xiao Meng is going to use that move? It can't be wrong. Xiao Meng raised his hand and grabbed at the air where Chu Hen was. Buzz! In an instant, the space around Chu Hen immediately fell into a strange distortion. Without waiting for Chu Hen to react, lines of talisman light patterns that were swaying with an ancient aura floated in the air. They interweaved and condensed into four huge walls of light. Chu Hen, who was inside the wall of light, immediately felt a great suppression on his aura. Along with the sound of iron chains colliding, one after another, huge and sturdy chains rapidly flew out of the wall of light patterns. The top of each iron chain was connected to a sickle. Chu Hen's eyes turned slightly cold. This was not the first time he had seen this move. Back in the Immortal and Devil Tomb, Xiao Meng had used this move to trap and kill the Eagle Taotai Blood Demon of the 24 Blood Demon Guards, and had perfectly cooperated with Heaven Gathering Pavilion's 10-feathered demon blade Li Yanqing to kill him. However, the one who was trapped now was him. The scene of killing the Eagle Taotai Blood Demon was even more bloody and terrifying. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The sharp sickles tore through the air and attacked Chu Hen. Chu Hen quickly dodged the attack of the hooked sickle, but more and more dark iron chains swept towards him. The sturdy iron chains were like crisscrossing iron chains. In the blink of an eye, they sealed off all of Chu Hen's escape route. "I believe you still remember this move." Xiao Meng sneered with a hint of mockery, and his eyes flashed with a sharp cold light. "Now, it's your turn. It's your turn." The hearts of everyone present were incomparably shocked. Xiao Meng stood in the air like a domineering demon catcher. He looked indifferently at Chu Hen, who was in the middle of the many chains, and the corner of his mouth raised into a cold smile. Demon Catcher Seal Formation! Whoosh! In the next moment, the intertwining chains that filled the sky rapidly converged towards Chu Hen. They were like countless dark and cold pythons, intertwining from inside and outside, and immediately drowned Chu Hen in the many iron chains. Each of the huge iron chains was more than a meter thick. They were wrapped inside and outside, and Chu Hen was immediately buried inside. The iron chains rolled and intertwined, forming a huge iron chain ball that was more than 100 meters in diameter. Strings of beautiful mysterious talismans appeared on the iron chain ball, like an ancient sealing barrier. In the blink of an eye, Chu Hen's aura seemed to be isolated from the outside world, and no one could sense it anymore. Chapter 1156. Whoosh! The gloomy and bleak aura that permeated the entire area caused the heavens and earth to tremble uneasily. Frost filled the air as the wind howled. The thick chains emitted a cold and gloomy luster, as if they were poisonous dragons and giant pythons that were entangled with each other, rapidly forming a ball. Looking at the huge ball of chains that floated in the air, all the martial ancestor sect disciples on the Tianwu Peak Square revealed a look of deep shock. The huge ball of chains buried Chu Hen inside and out. Following that, dazzling mysterious runes appeared on the ball of chains, as if a layer of ancient seal characters had been pasted on it. The unshakable and stable aura was like a mountain that no one could surpass. 1. A heavy aura permeated the sky. Young Master Qingqing, the Shao Alliance, was like a demon catcher, inspiring awe and respect. This power is really terrifying. He asked for it. After falling into the Shao Alliance's heaven-capturing seal, he probably won't be able to escape unscathed. Of course, just the suppression of the high-grade Saint bloodline is enough to immobilize him. Even if he escapes, he'll most likely be half dead. The crowd below the square clamored, seemingly wanting to add insult to injury. Especially Shen Hong, his face was filled with viciousness. Idiot. Who asked you to be so arrogant? You won't even know how you die next. Listening to the discussions around her, looking at the impregnable huge ball of chains, Zhao Qingyi clenched her fists and gritted her teeth. Qingkai, prepare to assist me with the tree soul technique, brother? Zhao Qingcai's heart skipped a beat and his face was filled with shock. The other party was the Shao Alliance, a top figure ranked 11th on the Tianwu leaderboard. I can't be bothered anymore, Zhao Qingyi said. Long Xuanxuang frowned, pursed her lips, and clenched her fists as she stared at the sky in front of her. Suddenly, Long Xuanxuang's beautiful eyes rippled and shone brightly. TSK. In the next second, the huge ball of chains suddenly tightened, and the sturdy chains abruptly tightened with great force. The runes engraved on it were emitting a burst of light that was fluctuating between strong and weak, while an extremely agitated energy was constantly spreading out from the inside. What was going on? Everyone was shocked. Xiaoming furrowed his brows. Before the crowd could react, an incomparably heavy and earth-shattering bang resounded, and a piercingly cold and violent pillar of lightning exploded in the arena. Clang! Boom! Sparks flew and arcs of light illuminated the sky. The sturdy chains that were intertwined with each other broke, one after another, like the body of a giant python that was broken, exploding inch by inch. A thunderstorm swept across the sky. Tens of thousands of heavenly tribulations shook the heavens. A terrifying force that was comparable to a landslide or a tsunami wreaked havoc in the sky above Tianwu Peak. The terrifying lightning tribulation was dazzling. Under the eyes of everyone, all the iron chains that were tightly wrapped around Tianwu Peak were shattered into pieces. A powerful airflow spread out in all directions. Heaven and earth shook, and everyone's minds trembled at the same time. What? This guy? Everyone present was still in a state of shock. Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingkai were in disbelief. Chi. Wind and thunder intertwined, the high and manic momentum was like tens of thousands of thunderbirds making bursts of high-pitched cries. Dozens of violent bolts of lightning intertwined around Chu Hen's body, as if they were terrifyingly swift and fierce lightning dragons. A dazzling dark blue arc of lightning flowed between Chu Hen's arms, and in his deep eyes there seemed to be lightning flashing. At this moment, heaven and earth lost its color. If the Shao Alliance was said to be a demon catcher, then, Chu Hen would directly transform into a shaman who wielded the divine thunder. He looked at Xiaomeng's incomparably cold face with disdain, and his indifferent tone carried a trace of ridicule. Heaven-capturing holy physique is just so. Hua. These simple words caused the hearts of countless people present to tremble. Everyone's gaze towards Chu Hen was filled with shock and surprise. What was this guy's background? How could he have such power? Seeing the berserk lightning pillars wantonly moving around Chu Hen's body, a dense chill surged within Xiaomeng's eyes. How long had it been since they last met? Compared to the time in the Tomb of Immortals and Demons, Chu Hen's power was much stronger. No wonder none of the people he sent to the sacrifice forest returned. The power of the mysterious killer thunder was truly astonishing. In an instant, Xiao Meng's eyes flashed with a cold, murderous intent. Humph, if you think this is all that the heaven-capturing holy physique is, then you are ridiculously wrong. Rumble. A majestic bloodline momentum that was comparable to a flood gushed out of Xiao Meng's body. He raised his arms, and the sky was suddenly covered by dark clouds. Illusory giant iron chains appeared out of thin air, faintly discernible in the void then. At the top of the central area where the giant iron chains were connected, an extremely ferocious and terrifying beast suddenly appeared. A dark and fierce aura of blood permeated the air. The ferocious beast had a goat's body and a ghost's face. Its tiger's teeth were exposed, and its entire body emitted a fierce and evil aura. Its appearance was somewhat similar to the legendary ancient ferocious beast, Tao Tai. But unlike Tao Tai, this blood demon's foreclaws were like an eagle's, and it had eagle wings on its back. Looking at the ferocious beast, the corner of Chu Hen's eyes could not help but tremble. His lips moved slightly, and he murmured in a low voice, "Tao Tai." "That's Tao Tai." Everyone on the Tianwu Peak also revealed a look of shock. Tao Tai was one of the 24 blood demon guards under Sun Luo King. It had the bloodline of the ancient ferocious beast Tao Tai, and its degree of bloodthirst and greed was not inferior to its ancestor. The bloodline of Tao Tai was born with a peerless ferocious power. Back in the tomb of immortals and demons, Chu Hen had witnessed Tao Tai's bloodthirst and ferociousness. This was also what surprised him. Are you surprised?" Xiao Meng revealed a sinister smile. He stood below the Tao Tai blood demon, and his eyes emitted a ferocious aura. "Any living creature that dies under my heaven-capturing holy body will have their power used by me." His arrogant momentum shocked everyone's heartstrings. Many martial ancestor sect disciples present shook their heads in surprise, and their faces were filled with awe. "I know. Previously in the tomb of immortals and demons, senior brother Xiao Meng and Li Yanqing from Qixiao Pavilion joined forces to kill the blood demon Tao Tai. The heaven-capturing holy body obtained a part of Tao Tai's power. After such a long period of refinement, I'm afraid this power has far surpassed what it was before." Hiss! What a terrifying bloodline boundary! While everyone sucked in a breath of cold air, their gazes once again gathered on Chu Hen. However, what caused people to feel surprised was that Chu Hen's expression did not change too much. On his face, there was not even the slightest bit of panic, still pretending to be calm. Shen Hong snorted coldly. Looking at the Taoist eagle blood demon that was emitting a frighteningly fierce aura, Chu Hen's 5 fingers tightened. With a shing sound of a sharp weapon vibrating, an incomparably sharp spear suddenly appeared in his hand. Chi! Electric arcs quickly wrapped around the spear, forming circles of light arcs that covered the spear. Chu Hen raised the spear, and the tip of the spear was pointed at Xiao Meng. He displayed the domineering aura of a king. "Today, I will kick you out of the heavenly martial list." Roar! As his voice fell, the sky trembled. The sky above Chu Hen was also surging, and the draining god spear in his hand gave out a shocking rhythm, accompanied by a long roar that reached the clouds. An ancient lizard dragon with arms on its back and its body covered in black scales suddenly appeared behind Chu Hen. "Oh my god! This is..." Two terrifying auras continuously collided, and the atmosphere of the entire heavenly martial peak was like an erupting volcano. All the spectators widened their eyes. "Kick him out of the heavenly martial list." That was what Chu Hen said to Xiao Meng. At this moment, countless people could not help but be convinced by the domineering aura that Chu Hen exuded. One was a newbie that had entered the sect for less than a month. The other was a monster that occupied the 11th place on the heavenly martial list. The two were like two mountains, facing each other, and their auras suppressed the crowd. Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingkai could no longer use words to describe their current feelings. Especially the latter, who thought that defeating Shen Hong was already Chu Hen's limit. She did not expect that even Xiao Meng could not suppress the opponent's aura. The way she looked at Chu Hen gradually changed. Even the last trace of rejection in her heart had disappeared. Tao Tai Blood Demon and Ancient Lizard Dragon, the two beasts wanted to fight. Xiao Meng, Chu Hen, wanted to fight. Courting death. Xiao Meng shouted and his aura surged. Chu Hen raised his eyes and his spear flickered. Bring it on! Chapter 1157. You're courting death. Bring it on. The Taoist blood demon swung its iron chain across the sky, displaying its ferocious demonic might. The ancient lizard dragon swung its spear with a shocking radiance. The two beasts confronted each other, intending to kill each other. More and more martial ancestor sect disciples gathered at Sky Martial Peak. Everyone's mood was different. Since ancient times, he was the only new disciple who dared to challenge a genius on the heavenly martial leaderboard. All of you stop. Just when the situation had reached the most eye-catching critical moment, a thunderous rebuke came from the direction of the astral realm of Dream. This angry shout was like a heavy hammer that broke the anxious atmosphere. Everyone's heart involuntarily trembled as they turned to look. A skinny old man with a cold gaze had unknowingly appeared on the square of Tianwu Peak. Upon seeing this person, the martial arts faction disciples were like mice that had seen a cat, shrinking their necks and running away. Oh no, it's Elder Li Si. Retreat. When did he come? What a disappointment. What's there to be disappointed about? Elder Li obviously saved Chu Hen's life. Seeing the arrival of Elder Li Si, Xiao Meng's cold and gloomy gaze softened. Soon after, the aura that he released gradually retracted, and the Taoist blood demon's silhouette in the sky also gradually disappeared. Humph! Xiao Meng glanced at Chu Hen coldly and landed on the ground. He cupped his fists and said, "Elderly." Looking at Xiao Meng, Li Si's expression softened a little, but his tone was still dark. You guys are truly audacious to dare to make a move on Heaven Martial Peak. If you affect the operation of the Dream of the Stars, will you be able to bear the consequences? Xiao Meng frowned and looked at Chu Hen, who had returned to the ground. Elderly. At this moment, Shen Hong hurriedly ran over and said, Elder, don't blame senior brother from the Xiao Alliance. It was this newcomer who was being unreasonable. He was the one who snatched my family's divine weapon. Senior brother from the Xiao Alliance was trying to seek justice for me. I never imagined that not only is this person arrogant, but he's also arrogant and conceited, and he even fought with the Xiao Alliance's senior brother. With a few words, he pushed all the blame on Chu Hen. Elder Li's gaze darkened as he glanced sideways at Chu Hen. Humph, how dare you! A mere newcomer dares to act so recklessly here? Shameless. Zhao Qingkai, Long Xuan, and Zhao Qingyi walked over as well. The former glanced disdainfully at Shen Hong and said, You really know how to twist the truth. We all saw it clearly. You guys were the ones who made the first move, yet you still blame it on Chu Hen, you? Shen Hong's expression turned cold as he retorted. He stole my clan's divine weapon. That's why we're looking for him. Are you kidding me? That exploding god hammer of yours is a mortgage. If you clear up the 5,000 star keys you owe Chu Hen, he'll naturally return the exploding god hammer to you. I've never seen such a shameless person. You know you're in the wrong, yet you're still making things up. One had to admit that Zhao Qingsai's little mouth was really good at scolding people. With just a few words, Shen Hong was rendered speechless. The Xiao Alliance gave Shen Hong a look, signaling him to shut up. Then, he turned to Elder Li and said, Elder, I was too rash to fight on Sky Martial Peak. I'm willing to accept my punishment. Elder Li nodded and continued, The two of you disregarded the sect's rules and fought on Sky Martial Peak. I'm now punishing the two of you. Hand over all the star keys in your hands, and use them to repair the damaged resources on Sky Marshall Peak. What? Hand over all the star keys? The expressions of Long Xuanxuang, Zhao Qingyi and the rest changed. Chu Hen also frowned. Some of the surrounding people secretly shook their heads, while some were gloating. After all, Chu Hen still had over 600 star keys in his hands. Compared to the 7 star keys he received every month, these star keys could be said to be a huge fortune. Moreover, the number of star keys that the Shao Alliance possessed did not exceed 200 at most. This punishment was really too unfair. Also, Elder Li once again shouted in a deep voice, in order to avoid a dispute between both parties in the future, return the violent godly hammer to the original owner. As for the star keys that the original owner owes, return them in quantity in the future. The moment these words left his mouth, everyone once again felt the great hostility towards Chu Hen. The so-called return in quantity meant that he could return as much as he wanted. Even if he returned 1 star every month, it would still be returned in quantity. Moreover, even if Shen Hong refused to return the star keys in the future, the sect would not care about this matter. After all, the competition between the newcomers was not the mission of the sect. That's too unfair. Zhao Qingkai repeatedly spoke up for Chu Hen. Li Si shouted coldly, "Humph, looks like the newcomers this year are getting more and more unruly. It's fine if you don't obey the punishment, but get out of the martial sect immediately. Get kicked out of the martial sect." This was a rather harsh punishment. Once he was kicked out of the sect, it would be useless no matter how many star keys he had. Although the other sects would fight to accept Chu Hen with his potential, Chu Hen had a purpose for coming here, so he could not just leave like this. Looking at the helpless Chu Hen and the others, Shao Alliance, Shen Hong, and the others had a faint smile on their faces. This disciple is willing to accept the punishment. Xiao Meng pretended to be humble as he casually presented his West Dome order token to Li Si. The latter nodded in satisfaction and looked at Chu Hen. "What? Do you still want to go the wrong way?" Chu Hen frowned and suppressed the nameless anger in his heart. He then let out a long sigh. This disciple, wait! Before he could finish speaking, another dignified voice rang in everyone's ears. The crowd quickly parted, and under many pairs of respectful eyes, a spirited old man with an otherworldly aura walked over. Whoosh! The entire audience was restless, and a low uproar was set off. "It's the master of North Star Hall! Oh my God, why is the old man here?" Martial sect. The sect master was the most respected and held the highest authority. Under the sect master were the masters of Dongxian, West Dome, South Spirit, and North Star Peak. Among them, the peak was at the front and the hall was at the back. In the entire North Star Peak hall, the old man before him was second only to the peak master. He was the master of North Star Hall, Luo Tsang. Shortly after, Chu Hen shockingly discovered that not far behind the old man, Wu Mian had a slightly smug look on his face. Chu Hen was stunned, and he could not help but have an epiphany. "Greetings, Master of North Star Hall." Everyone on Tianwu Peak, including Elder Li Si, bowed respectfully to him. Chu Hen also cupped his fists and bowed. Luo Tsang waved his hand as he looked at Chu Hen with a hint of approval in his bright eyes. "Not bad, not bad. Not bad at all." The 3 consecutive "not bad" made everyone feel that the situation was about to take a turn for the better. "Hall Master Luo Tsang, why are you here?" Li Si asked in a low voice. Luo Tsang smiled faintly and said, "I heard what all of you said earlier. Isn't your punishment a little too inappropriate, this?" Li Si frowned slightly. "They're young. It's normal for them to quarrel. There's no need to hand over all the star keys that they've worked so hard to obtain. Also, let the disciples settle their personal grudges. We didn't interfere when they organized the newcomers' fight, but they can't come to us just because they've suffered a loss. If that's the case, people will say that our sect is bullying the newcomers." The words that came out of Luo Tsang's mouth sounded especially light. It did not seem like a big deal at all. However, everyone understood. Chu Hen was a disciple of Beichen Peak Academy. As the hall master, he naturally had to protect him. Li Si replied with slight unwillingness, "But hall master, Heaven Marshal Peak is an important place in our sect, especially near the Galaxy Dream Realm. If we let them go this time, no one will care about the sect's rules in the future." So, Luo Tsang nodded. "What you said makes sense. Since it's like that, those who participated in the fight today will not be able to receive a star key from the sect for a year. Not being able to receive a star key for a year. To the other disciples, it could be considered as a big punishment. However, to Chu Hen, it was completely inconsequential. On the other hand, Shen Hong and the others had a bitter expression on their faces. Originally, all of his star keys had been plundered clean by Chu Hen. Now that he had another year's worth of star keys deducted, it was truly one disaster after another. This destroyed Heaven Marshal Peak building. Li Si was unwilling to let it go. "It's simple. I'll send someone to repair it. It'll be as good as new in 3 days at most." But Li Si wanted to say more, but Luo Tsang's expression quietly turned cold. "Why, elderly, do you think that I've done something wrong?" His gentle gaze immediately revealed a trace of majesty. Li Si's body trembled slightly, and he immediately agreed. "I don't dare." Although Beichen Peak Academy was the weakest among the 4 peak academies, there were not many people in the entire martial sect who dared to disrespect the hall master Luo Tsang. Li Si was only a guardian elder, and his status could not be compared to Luo Tsang. "All right, everyone is dismissed." Luo Tsang waved his hand and said. Everyone once again bowed and bid farewell. "Farewell, Hall Master Beichen." Luo Tsang nodded, and then looked at Chu Hen meaningfully, and then turned to leave. Chu Hen slightly let out a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the other party came in time, or else his previous efforts would have been in vain. Li Si coldly glanced at Chu Hen, and also left with a straight face. The surrounding crowd also left amidst the sounds of discussion. Xiao Meng walked past Chu Hen and said in a low voice, "You're lucky today, but you won't be so lucky next time." Chu Hen's handsome brows slightly raised, and his gaze was slightly slanted, and he smiled indifferently, ignoring the other party. "Are you guys all right?" Seeing that Xiao Meng and the others had left, Wu Mian returned to Chu Hen and asked. Zhao Qingkai glared at Wu Mian and said, "You still have the face to come back, but you ran so fast just now." "Hee, didn't I go to get help?" Wu Mian scratched his head and said with a smile. "Reinforcements? If it wasn't for Hall Master Luo Tsang's timely arrival, we would have suffered a great loss." Chu Hen looked deeply at the gradually disappearing Hall Master Beichen in the crowd, and his eyes were filled with gratitude. The martial arts sect disciples that had gathered on Tianwu Peak dispersed like the tide. However, on the peak of a mountain to the west of the Sky Martial Plaza, there were 2 young figures with extraordinary appearances. Behind them, there was a young man with a pale face who had yet to recover from his injuries. He looked coldly at Chu Hen, who was on the square with hatred in his eyes. "This damn thing, Qi Xing, will definitely not let him go." This person was none other than this year's strongest newcomer, Qi Xing. The 2 people standing in front of Qi Xing were also staring at the square with a deep gaze. "I didn't expect this guy to be so lucky. He's still alive. It's quite surprising indeed." Listening to their conversation, Qi Xing, who was behind them, asked in confusion, "Senior brother Lu Liao, senior brother Yang Ao, do you guys know him?" Of course we know him." One of them smiled disdainfully. "Back then, the 2 of us went to the Qilins Rocky Cave with senior brother Pei Yi to hunt for the Black Qilins Divine Soul, and we met this guy there, Pei Yi." When Qi Xing heard these 2 words, his body trembled violently. A hint of reverence could not help but appear in his eyes. "Qilins Rocky Cave, Black Qilin," Qi Xing muttered. "That's right. At that time, that guy was acting sneakily, and in the end, he was directly thrown into the earth core lava by senior brother Pei Yi. I thought he would definitely die, but I didn't expect him to still be alive. Should we tell Senior Brother Pei Yi about this? There's no need for that. He just happened to be able to fight with the Shao Alliance for a few rounds. There's no need to alarm Senior Brother Pei Yi. You're right. What kind of storm can a small fry like him do? Lu Liao and Yang Ao's conversation was casual. They did not take Chu Hen seriously at all. Qi Xing's eyes lit up as he stood behind them. He was secretly delighted in his heart. I didn't expect this guy to have offended Pei Yi. In this case, he won't be able to live for long. In the martial sect, peak competition. In the heaven martial ranking, dragon competition. In the center of the sky platform on heaven martial peak, the peerless heaven martial stone tablet was like a saint standing on the head of a giant. A beam of dazzling sunlight shone down on the stone tablet. At the top of the stone tablet, at the third position, the two imposing and fierce words Pei Yi shone brightly under the resplendent light, dazzling and dazzling. Chapter 1158. The Reverie Star Realm. The 9 heavens, mountains, rivers, and earth were all enveloped by a boundless lightning domain. Countless lightning weaved and coiled down, and it seemed as if it could tear the world apart. Chu Hen stood amidst the myriad of lightning bolts. His eyes glowed brightly, and his aura was shocking. His gaze suddenly focused, and a strange spatial rhythm silently unfolded. The majestic lightning pillars rapidly converged, and instantly turned into a dazzling lightning curtain. It was like the gate of heaven had opened to another world, and a ferocious behemoth with blue lightning arcs all over its body rushed out of the light curtain. Roar! The thunder beast let out a deafening roar. It stepped on the mountains, rivers, and earth, and received the might of the lightning tribulation. Its roar shook an area of 500 kilometers. On the other side, hundreds of bolts of lightning interweaved and converged once more. The pillars of lightning intertwined and coiled like lightning pythons. After that, a figure that looked like an enormous blade shot out and transformed into a lightning hawk that tore through the sky. Screech! A loud and clear cry shot into the sky, and it confronted the thunder beast from afar. Under Chu Hen's control, the energy of lightning that suffused the heavens and the earth ceaselessly transformed into various forms. There was the ferocity of beasts, the piercingly cold of birds, and the sharpness of blades, spears, swords, and halberds. Numerous ferocious beasts and birds circled and dashed around Chu Hen with monstrous auras. It was as if thousands of divine lightning birds were letting out manic cries. As he gazed at the magnificent scene before him, Chu Hen couldn't help but feel the domineering aura of someone who controlled this world. I've finally reached the level of being able to do as I please, he muttered in a low voice. After cultivating day and night in the Reverie Star Realm, Chu Hen's control of the profound killer divine lightning had become even more adept. He believed that it wouldn't be long before he would be able to control it at any time and any place, just like how he could control the boundaries of his bloodline. Chu Hen couldn't help but exclaim in admiration at the miraculousness of the Reverie Star Realm. After slightly calming the manic and powerful aura within his body, Chu Hen closed his eyes and started to retreat from the Reverie Star Realm. Buzz buzz! A dazzling array glyphs suddenly appeared under Chu Hen's feet. Following that, waves of light patterns intertwined and entangled him within. Following that, the space trembled, and a fresh and cool aura assaulted his face. When Chu Hen opened his eyes, he had already returned to the bottom of the Tao platform that carried the Dream Star Realm. On the grand and spacious platform, 4 giant stone pillars supported a huge star-like crystal ball in the shape of a moon. A dense spiritual mist shrouded the sky like a curtain that covered the sun. A few Wu Zong disciples lined up on the platform in an orderly manner. Like Chu Hen, there were also disciples who were teleported out of the star realm and returned to the platform. Senior Brother Chu Hen, have you finished your cultivation? At this moment, a young disciple guarding the platform saw Chu Hen and immediately walked over to greet him. Chu Hen was a little surprised. He remembered that when he first came, the other party's attitude was completely different from now. Even the way he addressed him had changed from junior brother to senior brother. However, it was normal when he thought about it. Things were different now. After the newcomers competed for fame, Chu Hen even competed with the Shao Alliance, who was ranked 11th on the Heaven Marshal roll. In the end, he even attracted the master of the North Star Courtyard, Luo Tsang. This was enough to show how extraordinary Chu Hen was. At least in the history of the Wu Zone, there had never been a newcomer who was so capable. So, the man's attitude took a 180-degree turn. "How long have I been inside?" Chu Hen asked casually. 16 days. The other party replied. Chu Hen nodded his head. Shortly after, he gave a slight signal before turning around and leaving. Looking at Chu Hen's back, the young guard shook his head and sighed. His eyes were filled with envy. "He's been inside for 16 days. I can only get 14 star keys in 2 months. How enviable! If I had known, I would have been more polite to him." After leaving the astral dream realm, Chu Hen went straight in the direction of the North Star Peak courtyard. When he passed by the Heaven Marshal Peak, the square of the Lingshao platform had already been restored. There was not even a pit in the ground, and it was exactly the same as before. Seeing this, Chu Hen secretly thought that he would find a chance to thank the master of the North Star Courtyard in person after a while. Soon, Chu Hen returned to the Sky Observation Peak. After not returning for more than 10 days, the stone table and stone chairs in the cave abode were covered with a thin layer of dust. However, the air inside was not blocked at all. It was still fresh. After a short rest, Chu Hen walked in front of the stone platform for cultivation. In front of him was a flat stone wall of a cave. His Niwen palace opened, and a gentle Reiki energy quickly gathered towards his arm. Then, with a wave of his hand, a gorgeous light pattern flashed past. The stone wall in front of Chu Hen seemed to be torn away by a veil, and a complicated rune appeared on the wall. Looking at the rune and secret scrolls on the wall, Chu Hen's eyes surged with heat. No one in the martial sect expected that the cave abode, which lacked spiritual energy and no one was willing to come to, actually hid the supreme martial art of the North Star Peak courtyard, the North Star technique. A bright light flashed in Chu Hen's eyes. Immediately, he calmed his mind and immersed himself in the study of the North Star technique. In the blink of an eye, a whole day passed quietly. The sun and moon alternated outside, and the day and night alternated. Chu Hen, who had never left the cave abode, stared at the bottom left corner of the rune on the wall with a puzzled look. This is really strange. This rune doesn't seem to have anything to do with the North Star technique. On the bottom left corner of the stone wall, there was a twisted and strange rune. There was no energy fluctuation at all, and there was no reaction when he inserted his true origin energy into it. Chu Hen originally thought that it was a part of the North Star technique, and that he could not understand it because he had not studied it thoroughly enough. However, now that he had memorized all the major parts of the North Star technique and could recite it out, he still found that this part of the rune was incompatible with the contents of the North Star technique. That's strange. Chu Hen squinted his eyes and thought for a while. In the end, he shook his head with certainty. This is definitely not a part of the North Star technique. If it was not the North Star technique, then what was it? Why did Senior Old Een Monkey carve it here? After thinking for a while, Chu Hen concentrated on the rune on the bottom left corner. There were more than 200 of these characters. They did not look like words. They looked like runes. However, with a glance, Chu Hen realized that he did not recognize a single rune. This was a bit awkward. He was a heaven-rank rune master, and he was familiar with tens of thousands of runes. However, he did not understand a single one of these runes. After close to 2 hours of careful study, Chu Hen's eyes were blurry, but he still did not find anything. Chu Hen rubbed his slightly sore eyes. Just as he was about to give up, Chu Hen's gaze suddenly landed on the last row, the 5th rune from the last row. This rune, Chu Hen frowned and muttered uncertainly, "I think I've seen it somewhere before," an inexplicable sense of familiarity. As if they had met before. Where was it? Chu Hen's gaze did not move, but his heartbeat faintly sped up. After a while, when the air seemed to freeze, Chu Hen's tightly knitted brows suddenly raised, and his eyes revealed a burst of light. "That's right, it's that stone." With that, Chu Hen flipped his hand and a white light flashed. A hemispherical stone immediately appeared in his hand. Fine lines were engraved on the stone. It looked a bit plain and ordinary. However, it was this seemingly ordinary stone that was hidden in the head of the ancient corpse in the lake in the quiet ridge. Chapter 1159. Familiar runes. They seemed to be familiar. He seemed to have seen them somewhere before. After a long period of silence, Chu Hen flipped his hand and a dazzling white light flashed past. In his hand, a hemispherical stone immediately appeared. Apart from its peculiar shape, the stone looked quite ordinary. If it was thrown on the roadside, no one would pick it up. It was this hemispherical stone that was hidden in the head of the ancient corpse in the lake in Silent Hill, and even the dripping spirit spear's attack was blocked by it. Looking at the stone that was not very heavy in front of him, and then looking at the runes in the lower left corner of the wall that were incompatible with the contents of the North Star art, Chu Hen's eyes were surging with a hint of contemplation. Then, he willed his mind again, and a scroll fell in front of Chu Hen. The scroll was unfurled, and it was filled with dense runes and secret spells. After getting this stone previously, Chu Hen had studied it in the treehouse of the ancestral butterfly clan for 2 days. These runes and numbers were the tiny lines on the surface of the stone. At that time, Chu Hen used Reiki energy to arrange these runes in many ways. However, he failed to form any effective rune technique. Moreover, there was no repulsion between the runes. In the end, apart from knowing that those runes had a very peculiar stability, there was nothing else useful. Unexpectedly, just when Chu Hen almost forgot about it, a similar rune and numbers appeared in front of him. It seemed that there were other ways to turn things around. Immediately, Chu Hen held the scroll full of runes and compared it with the runes in the lower left corner of the wall. After comparing them, he was surprised to find that several runes on the 2 runes overlap. Surprise! It was like a bright and beautiful meteor streaking across the silent night sky. Chu Hen's mind was a little restless. Could it be that I got a remnant before, so I couldn't arrange the correct rune technique? Immediately after, Chu Hen took out a brush, ink, paper, and an inkstone, and copied the secret runes on the bottom left corner of the stone wall onto the paper without missing a single word. Looking at the 2 secret tome characters in front of him, Chu Hen opened his mud pill palace and began to condense a string of dazzling runes. The runes intertwined and circled around, gradually taking shape. It was as if there were thousands of stars in the sky, causing the entire cave to be especially dazzling. Under Chu Hen's precise control, runes after runes quickly assembled and arranged themselves. In an instant, a strange spatial rhythm gradually began to stack up. There was a reaction. Chu Hen's eyes flashed with excitement. The densely packed runes were connected from end to end, and they were luxurious and resplendent like a constellation diagram in the vast universe. The airflow in the cave became rather restless, and strands of light swirled in front of Chu Hen. In the swirling swirl, Chu Hen could actually feel all things in the world, the sun, the moon, and the stars, as well as the aura of the great Tao of Yin and Yang. What was even more shocking was that an obscure power fluctuation was transmitted from Chu Hen's true essence, Violet Palace. And this power fluctuation actually originated from the great Tao Divine Stone, Buzz. In an instant Chu Hen's mind trembled, and his mind was filled with shock. "This is?" The great Tao Divine Stone actually responded. Previously in the small treehouse of the ancestral butterfly clan, the great Tao Divine Stone seemed to have an extremely obscure rhythm, but at that time it was fleeting, and Chu Hen only thought it was an illusion, and did not pay too much attention to it now. He could truly feel the great Tao Divine Stone's response. The sudden change made Chu Hen overjoyed. Ever since he had obtained the fragment of the great Tao Divine Stone, it was not that Chu Hen did not want to study it, but that he did not know where to start. As the most ancient and supreme divine item, the world knew very little about it. There weren't many people who had even seen it, let alone used it. The only time was in the ancient desolate heaven realm, when Chu Hen had personally witnessed the fragment of the great Tao Divine Stone evolve Yi Yao's bloodline boundary into a divine body. Although he did not know how Shintu Etian had found the method to activate the great Tao Divine Stone, there was no way to verify the disappearance of the Valley of Innocence. So, after such a long time, the fragment of the great Tao Divine Stone had been quietly placed in his true essence, Violet Palace. Buzz buzz. However, before Chu Hen could be happy for long, the airflow in the cave gradually calmed down, and the many runes in front of him immediately lost their previous brilliance and quickly dimmed. Then, at Chu Hen's fingertips, they crumbled into dust one by one. What was going on? The scene in front of him immediately caused Chu Hen's heart to sink. What was the problem? He looked at the two runes in front of him solemnly, and then found the problem. In comparison, the number of runes that had been copied from the stone wall was clearly lesser than the one he had copied from before. In other words, these two added together were still incomplete. A long exhale sounded in the cave. Chu Hen's eyes narrowed, and he shook his head, sinking into deep thought. Senior Old Monkey did not finish the second half, but why was that? Was it on purpose? Impossible. He had even carved the complete Baichen mantra, so there was no need to hold back on these unknown runes. Since he had carved it in the cultivation position, it was clear that he was also studying the contents. This way. Chu Hen raised his eyebrows, and his hands that were holding the scroll subconsciously clenched into fists. Senior Old Monkey must have seen this content somewhere, so he carved it to study it alone. Could it be the other half of it? Chu Hen's gaze swept over the hemispherical stone at the side. Looking at it now, its original shape was very likely to be a complete stone ball. Could the other half be hidden somewhere in the martial organization? This thought immediately caused Chu Hen to be somewhat moved. His intuition told him that this item was very important to him. Junior Long, what a coincidence! You're also here to find Junior Chu Hen? At this moment, a familiar voice outside the cave interrupted Chu Hen's thoughts. Chu Hen was slightly startled, and immediately stood up, and casually struck out a string of beautiful runes to cover the contents of the stone wall. A series of noisy footsteps came from outside the door. Junior Chu Hen, are you there? Junior Long and I are here to see you. Wu Mian strutted into the room with a loud voice. Behind her, Long Xuanxuang's eyes were like pearls, cold and beautiful. I'm here. Chu Hen replied as he walked to the side of the table and chair. I finally bumped into you. I didn't see you the last few times. Speaking of which, what profound martial arts were you studying? You actually didn't go to the Star Dream Realm. Wu Mian smiled slyly. Chu Hen first glanced at Long Xuanxuang, then said to Wu Mian in a lazy tone, What's the matter? Hee. Wu Mian seemed to be a little embarrassed as she licked the corner of her mouth. Junior Chu Hen, can you lend me some star keys? Chu Hen's handsome eyebrows slightly raised. Oh, you're looking for me to return the star keys? No. I definitely didn't mean that. There's no need to return that star key. Wu Mian hurriedly waved her hand, then said, I made a bet with that bastard Ding Xiaoyun, and in the end I owe him 20 star keys. He comes to me every day, and it's annoying me to death, so I came to borrow some from you. Wu Mian's beady eyes moved back and forth like a clever little mouse. Chu Hen smiled indifferently. How could he not see through Wu Mian's thoughts? Give me the token, all right? Wu Mian immediately handed over the disciple token. Chu Hen received it, then took out his sect token and casually swiped it over to Wu Mian, giving him 20 star keys. Wu Mian's eyes sparkled. He was especially happy. Thank you, junior brother Chu Hen. Thank you, junior brother Chu Hen. Hee, if you need any help in the future, just let me know. Wu Mian will definitely make it tidy for you. As soon as he finished speaking, Wu Mian eagerly took the disciple token from Chu Hen. Chu Hen smiled and said, "You don't say, I really do have something that I need your help with, huh?" Wu Mian's mouth was agape as he scratched his head. "Help me find the origin of this rune." As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Hen passed a piece of paper filled with strange runes to Wu Mian. This piece of paper was a copy of the additional content on the stone wall. Wu Mian was a little dumbfounded. Looking at the dense and complicated runes on the paper, he suddenly felt dizzy. "How do I find it? Our martial sect has so many scriptures, runes and scrolls, but you're only giving me this rune. This is no different from looking for a needle in a haystack. If you want to find it, I'll give you another 100 star keys, deal." Wu Mian immediately snatched the piece of paper with lightning speed. His eyes lit up. Long Xuan, who was standing at the side, looked at Chu Hen in surprise. What exactly was it that made Chu Hen spend 100 star keys to exchange for it? However, Lan Zhihui's heart was like hers, so he did not ask her. "Little Yao is still busy?" Chu Hen looked at Long Xuan and said. The latter nodded and opened her red lips slightly. "She rarely came back these few days. She came back once last night, but she left early in the morning. However, she asked me to tell you that she's at the Red Bamboo Forest. She said we can go there to find her." Red Bamboo Forest? Chu Hen was a little surprised. Wu Mian stared at the content on the paper as he muttered to himself, "Red Bamboo Forest. Isn't that where the Peak Master cultivates? But junior brother Chu Hen, what's written on it? Are you sure you're not messing with me?" The speaker did not mean it, but the listener did. Chu Hen and Long Xuan could not help but look at each other. They could see the shock in each other's eyes. Chapter 1160. There was a lush bamboo forest about 200 miles away from the Beichen main peak. Different from ordinary bamboo forests, the bamboos here were not only very tall, but their joints and leaves were also red like maple leaves. From afar it looked like a sea of red clouds. Scarlet Bamboo Forest. The scenery was strange and beautiful, and the surroundings were very quiet. From time to time, a few white red-crowned cranes flew across the sky above the bamboo forest. A clear stream meandered through the forest, and the pebbles by the stream were sparkling and translucent. Under the sunlight they glistened like pearls. This was a rare place to cultivate in peace. The scenery was picturesque, and the spiritual energy was abundant. Living in this place, it was as if even the most restless of hearts could be quickly pacified. In the depths of the bamboo forest, there was a wide open space. A black and white kitten was lying on the stone platform of the rockery, lazily closing its eyes to rest. Not far away, a pure and beautiful young girl's palms were facing each other. Along with a piercingly cold aura fluctuation, strands of blue light intertwined between her palms. The light patterns were like cyclones, like the gathering of true origin essence. It immediately turned into a rhombus-shaped energy crystal. The rhombus-shaped crystal was dazzling, and it was as beautiful as a star. Looking at the blue rhombus-shaped crystal in front of her, a happy smile appeared on the young girl's face. "Very good." At the same time, a gentle voice was transmitted over. On a stone platform a few meters in front of the young girl sat an old man in his 50s. The old man's clothes were simple, and his eyes were gentle, giving off a very peaceful aura. However, seeing the old man say "good," the young girl was even more happy. Then, she slightly withdrew her palms, and the true origin energy she released was restrained. The blue rhombus-shaped crystal in front of her was immediately covered in cracks, and it exploded into sparkling fragments of various sizes. The fragments floated down like fallen leaves, sliding to the ground, but they left behind fine marks. "Little Yaoer, you've improved very quickly. I was right about you." The old man came down from the stone platform and walked in front of her, praising her. "That's because Peak Master taught me well." The old man shook his head, and a trace of helplessness flashed within his eyes. Amongst my personal disciples, only that kid, Wu Yen, has a good natural talent, and the others are all inferior. This caused our North Star Peak Academy to deteriorate year by year. Now, I'll make an exception and pass down the North Star mantra to you. You have to cultivate diligently and master it as soon as possible." The girl nodded. "I understand. Yes. In a few days, you can directly go cultivate in the dream of the star realm. With your natural talent, I believe it won't be long before you can condense the second magnificent star jade." Meow. As he spoke, the black and white cat on the stone platform suddenly stood up and let out a gentle meow. Then, it actually jumped off the rock platform and looked towards the other end of the bamboo forest. The girl's eyes lit up. "It must be Brother Chu Hen." The old man frowned slightly, as if he did not like this quiet place to be disturbed by irrelevant people. "Peak Master, I told Brother Chu Hen that I'm here. Do you want to see him?" Brother Chu Hen is much more powerful than me, however. The old man did not seem to be too interested. He replied indifferently, "I'm going to North Star Peak later. I haven't left the red bamboo forest for the past few days. I heard that Dean Luotsang has something to discuss with me. You can go back any time today." After saying that, the old man turned around and walked in the opposite direction. It seemed like he had only taken a few steps, but in the blink of an eye, he was already 100 meters away. Looking at the old man's back, Yi Yao felt a little disappointed. It seemed like the Flying Cloud City's evaluation did not detect the grade of the bloodline, causing the martial ancestor sect to overlook Chu Hen, the top genius who had a martial talent exceeding grade 9. At the same time, the sound of steady footsteps was getting closer. Yi Yao turned around, and two familiar figures immediately entered her line of sight. "Brother Chu Hen, Sister Xuanshuang, you're here." After a few days, Yi Yao's qi had improved significantly. She was obviously much more powerful than before. "If I didn't see you, I would have thought that you were missing." Chu Hen rubbed her head like an elder brother. After that, he bent down and stroked the black and white cat's back, saying, "Noni has put on a lot of weight." "Meow." Noni responded with a soft meow. Long Xuanshuang added, "I've only seen you a few times even though we live under the same roof. It seems that you're really busy." Yi Yao scratched her head embarrassedly, saying, "Actually, I should have told you long ago. But my master told me not to tell anyone." "Master?" Chu Hen slightly raised his eyebrows as he exchanged a glance with Long Xuanshuang. After that, he asked tentatively, "Is the Peak Master of North Star Peak Academy, you know about it?" Yi Yao widened her eyes and looked at him in surprise. Chu Hen's thoughts were confirmed. At the same time, he was surprised. The Peak Master of North Star Peak was a level higher than the Academy Master Luotsang. In the entire martial sect, he was second only to the sect master and was on equal footing with the other three Peak Masters. Chu Hen smiled. "I guessed it. I heard that the Red Bamboo Forest is the Peak Master of North Star Peak's cultivation place. In addition, in less than a month your cultivation has improved so rapidly. Apart from the Peak Master, I can't think of a second person who has such ability." Yi Yao nodded. "I didn't discuss it with you in advance. Brother Chu Hen won't be angry with me, right?" "How is that possible? To be taught by the Peak Master personally, we can't be more than happy for you." "That's good." Yi Yao revealed a sweet smile as she pulled one of them to the empty ground in front of them. "Look at the new move that I've just learned." "Sure. Then we'll have to open our eyes and take a look." Chu Hen smiled. Long Xuanshuang also looked interested. Following that, Yi Yao walked to the center of the empty ground alone. The true origin energy in her body surged out as she put her palms together and pulled them apart. Her palms faced each other. Buzz buzz. Strands of blue light flowed out from Yi Yao's palms and arms, intertwining with each other along her slender fingers. In an instant, a luxurious and beautiful energy crystal was formed in her palms. Looking at the familiar scene in front of him, a light flashed in Chu Hen's eyes. It was the North Star technique. He did not expect the peak master of Northstar Peak to pass on one of the 4 great techniques of the sect to her. Without a doubt, this was a great affirmation and respect, he found out from Wu Mian. There were only 2 ways for a martial ancestor disciple to understand the Northstar technique. One was to comprehend it in the martial ancestor's sacred tablet, and the other was to be personally taught by the peak master. However, both of them had to fulfill one condition, which was to stay in the sect for at least 3 years. It could be said that the peak master of Northstar Peak had made an exception for this trip. This was enough to show how much respect he had for Yi Yao. Whoosh! An obscure yet shocking energy fluctuation filled the air. In an instant, a rhombus-shaped energy crystal that was about 20 to 30 centimeters wide floated between Yi Yao's palms. The rhombus-shaped crystal was bright and beautiful, shining with a gorgeous light. Big Brother Chu Hen, this is the magnificent star jade. I can only condense one now, and there's a huge amount of energy compressed in it, Yi Yao explained to the 2 of them. Following that, with a move of her palms, the magnificent star jade immediately turned into a beam of light and flew out with a sharp sound like an arrow flying through the air. The rapid airwave dragged through the air. Wherever the magnificent star jade went, a deep ravine would appear on the ground. One after another, the sturdy red bamboo was neatly cut by a sharp knife. Even the fake mountain that was blocking the way had a rhombus-shaped hole. The small magnificent star jade was like a divine ray that cut through tofu paper, sharp and sharp. Looking at the scene in front of her, Long Xuanshuang's eyes were filled with shock. On the contrary, Chu Hen could not help but show some confusion on his face. Whoosh! Very soon, the magnificent star jade flew out of the red bamboo forest, as if it was crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Yi Yao's eyes turned cold, and she formed a seal with her hands. Her red lips opened slightly, and she shouted in a low voice, "Star Battle Seal!" Hiss, accompanied by the sharp sound of the air being torn apart, the speed of the magnificent star jade increased dramatically once again. Its shape seemed to have become especially sharp, like a flowing light shuttle that had traveled back thousands of years. In the blink of an eye, it struck a mountain peak in front of it. Boom! In the next moment, the mountain that was 300 meters in diameter was directly penetrated by the blue jade shuttle. Then, like a shooting star that had leaped into the sky, it disappeared in the horizon. What a terrifying penetrating power! Long Xuanshuang said in shock. Such a powerful penetrating power, I'm afraid even Saint Armor can't block it. Yi Yao withdrew the aura around her, and a relaxed expression appeared on her face. Its attack power is indeed very strong. I've only just started practicing, and after I've familiarized myself with it, I can even call back the magnificent star jade I released at will. You can still call it back? Long Xuanshuang was even more surprised. In that case, the jade shuttle could attack the enemy repeatedly, and there were not many people who could withstand such a terrifying penetrating power. Yes. Yi Yao nodded and gave her affirmation. Not only can it be called back, but it can also increase the number of magnificent star jade. At most, it can condense 9 magnificent star jade in one go. 9 magnificent star jade? That's really shocking. Long Xuanshuang exclaimed in shock from the bottom of her heart. Merely a single magnificent star jade already possessed such terrifying lethality. If he were to summon 9 of them at once, how shocking would that scene be? No matter how strong an opponent's defense was, they would not be able to withstand the continuous impact of 9 magnificent star jade. At that time, 9 magnificent star jades would revolve around her, and she could attack and defend at will. Big Brother Chu Hen, how is it? Why aren't you saying anything? Yi Yao looked at Chu Hen, who was silent at the side. There seemed to not be much shock on his face, and instead, there was a lot of confusion on his face. His gaze focused slightly, and his brows were slightly furrowed. He seemed to be lost in thought. Strange, why does it feel slightly different? Chu Hen muttered. What's different? Yi Yao was even more puzzled. She looked at Long Xuanshuang with a questioning gaze, but the latter was also extremely puzzled. Chapter 1161. Little Yao, execute the move from before once more. Chu Hen spoke abruptly. Yi Yao and Long Xuanxuang were both stunned, and they looked at each other with slight bewilderment, as they didn't know why Chu Hen would make such a request. Big brother Chu Hen still hasn't seen it clearly? Then I'll execute it once more. But condensing magnificent star jade consumes too much true essence, and I can only execute it once at most. Any more and I won't be able to do it. Yi Yao spoke like this. Chu Hen nodded and agreed. After that, Yi Yao once again returned to the empty space before her and rested for a moment. She took a deep breath, and a strand of powerful true essence instantly gushed out from within her body. The palms of her two hands were facing each other, and strands of blue light markings were like intertwined balls of thread that swiftly condensed into a ball. At the same time, Chu Hen's eyes squinted, and he shouted in his heart, "Demon Eye! OM!" Instantly, an obscure aura rhythmically reverberated within Chu Hen's eyes, and along with the slightly trembling airflow, an evil violet glow instantly surged within his pupils that were pitch black like ink. The scene before his eyes seemed to ceaselessly overlap, and at this moment, the circulation path and form of condensation of all the true essence within Yi Yao's body was incomparably clearly displayed within Chu Hen's field of vision. It really is different. As he looked at the enormous source of energy that gushed out from his true essence Violet Palace before passing through the various meridians to converge at the center of his palm, at the same time that he obtained confirmation, the bewilderment in Chu Hen's heart grew even deeper. He noticed to his surprise that the method Yi Yao condensed magnificent star jade was actually different from the North Star arts he cultivated. Comparatively speaking, Yi Yao's technique was more agile, and the speed at which she compressed her energy into magnificent star jade was even faster. On the other hand, the Northern Star art that Chu Hen trained in had an even more exquisite and meticulous way of condensing the magnificent star jade. The true origin energy seemed to pass through every meridian in his body, big or small, and finally fused into one. The former was comparable to a torrent that converged into the sea. The latter was like 100 rivers flowing into a river. In terms of the speed at which the magnificent star jade was condensed, Yi Yao would be faster, but in terms of its structure, Chu Hen would be able to compress and fuse it more perfectly. In terms of destructive power, it would also be a level higher. Of course, what Chu Hen was concerned about was not whose strength was stronger or whose speed was faster. What he was surprised about was why their cultivation methods were different. Little Yao, it's done. Just as Yi Yao was about to condense the magnificent star jade in front of her, Chu Hen spoke up to stop her. At the same time, the purple light in his eyes quickly receded. Yi Yao responded, and then withdrew her true essence, allowing the magnificent star jade in front of her to shatter into countless ice crystal fragments. Big brother Chu Hen, did you see it clearly this time? Yi Yao walked in front of the two of them with a smile. However, Chu Hen's reply once again caused the other party to be even more astonished. Little Yao, let me take a look at your North Star Mantra martial technique, huh? Yi Yao's eyes widened, and she was both surprised and puzzled as she asked. Big brother Chu Hen, how did you know that I'm cultivating the North Star Mantra? At the side, Long Xuanxuang also revealed a puzzled expression. Indeed, since the two of them had arrived here, Yi Yao had only mentioned the magnificent star jade, but she had never mentioned the name of this martial technique. But Chu Hen had actually revealed it in one go. Coupled with the fact that Chu Hen had asked her to execute it a second time, it instantly caused them to be filled with puzzlement. I only heard Wu Mian mention the North Star Mantra, and I was slightly curious, Chu Hen replied. He did not intend to tell the two girls the secret of the Sky Observation Peak's abode now, especially since it was in the territory of the North Star Peak's crimson bamboo forest. If it were to be leaked, who knew what kind of trouble it would attract? The reason Chu Hen wanted to view Yi Yao's martial technique was merely to be able to confirm it a step further. Yi Yao seemed to be in a slightly difficult position. But, Master said that I'm not allowed to reveal the contents of the North Star mantra to anyone. Chu Hen nodded his head. He had indeed forgotten about this point. As one of the 4 supreme martial techniques of the martial sect, it must be kept safe. However, right at this moment Yi Yao's eyes turned, and she suddenly said, "Although I promised Master that I wouldn't reveal its contents, Big Brother Chu Hen, you can peek at it." Peek? Chu Hen was stunned, and then he smiled and said, "What stupid idea did you come up with this time? If it's really difficult, then forget it. If the Peak Master finds out, it won't be good for you." "It's fine, Master has gone to Heaven Martial Peak, there's only a few of us here." With that, Yi Yao actually turned around, and her back faced Chu Hen and Long Shuheng. Then she actually muttered to herself, "It seems like I can't remember the middle and lower half of the North Star mantra." Then, Yi Yao flipped her small hand, and a dark golden scroll fell into her hand. The craftsmanship of the scroll was extremely meticulous, and there was even a string of strange runes on the seal as an activation restriction. Chu Hen and Long Xuanxuang looked at each other, and they could not help but burst out laughing. This girl actually pretended that the two of them were not here. Although the method was childish and funny, it was still acceptable. Yi Yao activated the sealing rune restriction, and accompanied by a gentle light, the scroll in her hand floated in midair, and opened up like a heavenly book. Inside the scroll, there were numerous runes and secret scrolls flashing. Under the astonished gazes of Chu Hen and Shuang, a burst of bright and beautiful radiance flickered on the surface of the scroll. As if the runes inside were alive, they slowly moved and floated in the air. The runes floating in midair arranged themselves in order, and an illusory, gentle light appeared. Following that, the runes began to change into lines of text. North Star Shuttle Jade, Divine Light Chest Star, North Star Mantra. Looking at the opening of the first vertical line, the corner of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed, and he revealed a slightly moved expression. The content of the first part was not much different from what was written on the stone wall of the Heaven Peak Cave. But when it came to the middle part, there were obvious changes. The further it went, the greater the changes. The more Chu Hen read, the more shocked he was, and the more surprised he was. When it came to the last part, it was no longer just changes in the circulation method, and even the overall structure was different. It was unimaginable. There was actually such a difference between the two North Star mantras. "It's done," Chu Hen said. Yi Yao was stunned. "So fast? How much can you remember?" Chu Hen nodded. "It's enough. Put it away quickly. It'll be bad if someone sees it." "Got it." Yi Yao nodded obediently, then closed the scroll in front of her and sealed it again. At the same time, the dense text floating in the air also disappeared the instant the scroll merged with the air, completely disappearing. "Is there a problem?" Long Xuanxuang asked softly. Chu Hen did not seem to want to secretly learn Yi Yao's North Star mantras. Moreover, even someone with a photographic memory would not be able to remember a few lines in such a short time. Chu Hen's gaze was deep, and he looked like he was deep in thought. In the end, he shook his head. "It's nothing. I'll tell you later." Chapter 1162. After leaving the red bamboo forest, Chu Hen, Long Xuanxuang, and Yi Yao chatted for a while before returning to Sky Observation Peak. Chu Hen's heart was filled with questions, and he did not have the mood to cultivate in the starry dream realm. He returned to his abode and removed the concealment technique. He looked at the series of complicated runes and numbers on the wall, and a deep expression appeared on his face. Strange. Why were there two different North Star mantras? What little Yao cultivated shouldn't be wrong, Chu Hen muttered to himself. After all, the martial technique that Yi Yao obtained was personally taught to her by the North Star Peak Master. There was no doubt about the contents of the technique. Could it be that what he cultivated was wrong? Chu Hen shook his head and denied it. Half a month ago, he had successfully condensed the magnificent star jade. Just this alone was enough to prove that the North Star mantras he cultivated was feasible. In that case, there was only one possibility. Chu Hen crossed his arms in front of him and supported his chin with his right hand. His eyes were filled with caution. The North Star mantras in front of him had been modified by someone else, and the person who modified it was the previous owner of Sky Observation Peak, Old Een Monkey! Exclamation! Unbelievable! It was even slightly absurd. If Chu Hen told 100 people what he thought, there would be 100 people who would look at him with ridicule and disdain. Even Wu Mian had once ridiculed him with disdain, saying that Old Een Monkey could forget about coveting the North Star mantras. But in reality, Wu Mian had personally told Chu Hen that Old Een Monkey had once comprehended the Saint Martial tablet for 3 days. 3 days. 4 cultivators, a short period of time passed in the blink of an eye. The strongest person in North Star Peak Academy, Wu Yen, had also sat under the Saint Martial tablet for 3 long months before finally comprehending the supreme technique. One was 3 days, the other 3 months. One was a freak that did not like to interact with others, the other was a top martial arts genius. Obviously, in everyone's opinion, it was impossible for Old Een Monkey to have obtained the North Star art. Of course, the contents on this wall were indeed written by the Old Een Monkey. The handwriting was very similar to the 3 words Sky-Gazing Peak carved on the stone tablet outside the cave abode. The evidence was right in front of them. In just 3 days, the Old Een Monkey, who no one understood, had indeed comprehended the North Star technique. What was even more surprising was that he had actually made quite a few changes to this sacred cultivation method that was regarded as one of the 4 great techniques of the martial ancestor. Thinking of this, Chu Hen could not help but laugh. If this matter were to spread out, the entire martial organization would be turned upside down. In his Old Een Monkey's eyes, the first North Star mantra actually made him very dissatisfied. Was this person a genius who was misunderstood by others, or a lunatic who did not care about anything? Most people would think that it was the latter. The thoughts in Chu Hen's mind revolved rapidly. The content of the martial technique before him wasn't the orthodox North Star art, but it had been modified by a madman. Should he cultivate on his own? Or should he stop before going too far? In the cave abode, there was a long silence. After a long time, Chu Hen clenched his fist lightly and gritted his teeth. His eyes flashed with determination. Forget it. I, Chu Hen, will be the first person to believe in you. In the next 2 months, not only did Chu Hen not give up on cultivating the North Star mantra left behind by the Old Een Monkey, he instead studied every detail in detail. At the same time, every once in a while, Chu Hen would ask about Yi Yao's progress by beating around the bush. After comparing the two, the difference between the two was gradually revealed. In the first month, when Chu Hen had successfully condensed the first magnificent star jade, Yi Yao had already begun to condense the second one. Then, in less than half a month after Yi Yao completed the fusion of the second magnificent star jade, Chu Hen also quietly condensed the second one. In other words, in the early stages of condensing the magnificent star jade, Yi Yao was obviously faster than Chu Hen by quite a bit. But as time passed, this lead was gradually nibbled away. 2 months later, Yi Yao began to prepare to condense the third magnificent star jade. In a mere 5 days, Chu Hen had also reached this level. From a full month's lead at the beginning to a gap of 5 days, Chu Hen had almost walked to the same starting line as Yi Yao. Moreover, according to this pattern, once they reached the middle to later stages, Chu Hen would also catch up to Yi Yao. To be honest, this was a phenomenon that Chu Hen had not expected. He only wanted to compare the two of them to verify the differences between the 2 North Star mantras. In the Reverie Star realm, on a majestic high sky balcony, heaven and earth were filled with extremely dense and majestic spiritual power. Chu Hen raised both of his palms. On each of his palms, A sparkling and resplendent blue prismatic crystal floated. The prismatic crystal was about 30 centimeters long, like a shuttle jade made from the essence of the 9 heavenly stars. Now, Chu Hen could condense 2 magnificent star jades in an extremely short period of time. The destructive power of a single magnificent star jade was comparable to a top-notch martial art like the heavenly light blade. Chu Hen secretly wondered if he should tell Yi Yao about this. After a long period of hesitation, Chu Hen finally shook his head. First of all, Yi Yao had already fully immersed herself in cultivating the orthodox North Star art. If he asked her to change now, all her previous efforts would probably go down the drain. Furthermore, she was personally guided by the North Star Peak Lord. The cultivation method she cultivated was very orthodox and stable. In comparison, although the North Star art that Chu Hen practiced was a new chapter that had been modified, and although the further he went, the more advantages he would have, whether or not there were still undiscovered flaws, it was still not confirmed for the time being. After all, in the entire martial sect, other than himself, no one else had seen the contents left behind by the old Een monkey in the cave. If there really was a flaw, and something happened to Yi Yao because of it, this was not what Chu Hen wanted. Looks like I can only decide if I should tell little Yao or not after I've completely mastered this North Star mantra. Chu Hen let out a long sigh of relief. Then, with a move of his mind, a dazzling glyph array appeared beneath him. Brilliant white lights intertwined with each other. Buzz! The space trembled and Chu Hen immediately disappeared from the high heaven platform. Hua! A cool night breeze blew in his face. Chu Hen, who had retreated from the starry dream realm, returned to the platform. It was almost midnight. The bright moon hung high in the sky, and the stars dotted the vast night sky. A few martial sect disciples who were guarding the platform squinted their eyes and yawned from time to time. Without staying there for long, Chu Hen stepped on the air and turned into a beam of light that leaped into the sky. Not long after, Chu Hen arrived in the sky above the heaven observation peak. Feeling the lack of spiritual energy around him, he could not find 2 people within a radius of a few hundred miles. Chu Hen shook his head. He actually passed the sky observation peak and flew towards the more remote back mountain area. After passing through more than 10 mountain ridges, the aura in the air gradually became abundant. From time to time, the roars of ferocious beasts could be heard from the deep forest in the distance. Chu Hen landed on a precipitous mountain range. In front of him was a vast ravine. Immediately, with a thought, Chu Hen's divine sense sank directly into the violet palace of true essence. The abnormally vast violet palace of true essence was like an inch of pure land in the 3,000 greater worlds. The violet palace of an ancient eternal expert rotated with the sun and moon in the outside world, alternating between day and night. Above the vast river of true essence, Chu Hen's violet palace Saint Soul sat quietly on a stone platform suspended in the air. Under the huge purple eyes of the demon god, the saintly winged heavenly flame sparrow's body was shrouded in flickering colorful patterns, like a divine bird in deep sleep. In another place, the ferocious dragon skeleton exuded a supreme majesty that had yet to fade. Previously, when he was at the ancestral butterfly clan, Chu Hen had unintentionally discovered that there seemed to be a remnant soul left in the dragon skeleton that had yet to disappear. From then on, Chu Hen would always separate a portion of his power and fuse it with the dragon skeleton. It had been more than 2 months. In fact, it had been close to 3 months. There did not seem to be too obvious of a change. Within the dragon skeleton, there were still not many strong energy fluctuations. However, Chu Hen could vaguely sense that the dragon skeleton was continuously absorbing his true essence. If he wanted to change the dragon skeleton, he would probably need to invest even more. At least, with Chu Hen's own strength, it was far from enough. Afterwards, Chu Hen's attention was focused on a huge stone tablet that emitted an ancient aura. The stone tablet was like a mountain, its entire body swaying with strange ancient runes. This was a truly ancient aura that could not be replicated. The runes intertwined, changing unpredictably. Looking at this huge ancient stone tablet, Chu Hen's mind suddenly moved. Then, his violet palace of true essence opened wide, and a majestic power of breathing poured out from his body. Buzz, buzz. At the peak of the mountain, beneath the starry sky, a powerful vortex of true essence formed in front of Chu Hen. The vortex was like a rapidly rotating nebula. After that, a black shadow flashed out from the true essence vortex, and it flew towards the vast gorge in front of it. Rumble, in the next instant, a huge object smashed into the ground, filling up the vast canyon. Rocks shattered, and the earth split open, accompanied by a heavy aura that swept in all directions. A huge stone tablet immediately fell in front of Chu Hen. In the dark night sky, chaotic air currents filled the air. A hint of faint desire appeared in Chu Hen's eyes. Chapter 1163. Divine Stone of the Great Path. What kind of power do you have? The cold wind of the night blew, and the stars in the sky dimmed. In the quiet remote mountain, only the roars of the beasts in the forest could be heard. Chu Hen stood on top of a cliff. The ancient stone tablet in front of him instantly filled up the vast ravine in front of him. Cultivator of the Great Path. Moving the stars, avoiding death and prolonging life. The universe moved, and all things were bright. Holding the sun and the moon, stabilizing yin and yang, suppressing evil spirits, merging heaven and earth, gathering the spiritual energy of all things into one body. In ancient times, tens of thousands of years ago, there was an Almighty who used the power of the chaotic universe to turn heaven and earth into a furnace. Using the spiritual energy of all things, he refined the supreme divine item, the divine stone of the Great Path. This was what Chu Hen knew about the divine stone of the Great Path. Looking at the stone tablet in front of him, which exuded an endless aura of desolation, Chu Hen's eyes surged with a trace of seriousness. Then, Chu Hen's hands gently pressed against the stone tablet. At the same time, the true inner energy in his body circulated rapidly, pouring into the stone tablet. However, the true inner energy that entered the stone tablet disappeared like a clay ox in the sea. The divine stone of the Great Path didn't stir up any energy. Chu Hen shook his head. If it was the 7-star soul pearl, the blue sky sword, the dripping god spear, the Tianai blade, or other weapons, once true inner energy was poured into them, they could release powerful energy. But the divine stone of the Great Path didn't send the slightest reaction. Then, Chu Hen opened his Naiwan palace and released a thick Reiki energy. The result was the same. The vast Reiki energy directly sank into the stone tablet. Then, Chu Hen fused the true inner energy and the Reiki energy, creating a third kind of spirit martial power to experiment. There was still no change. It still doesn't work. Chu Hen frowned. But he didn't intend to give up. Shocking bloodline power poured out of his body, and a thick purple light rose out of his body like flames. His pitch-black pupils turned into a demonic purple. In an instant, the scene in front of him rapidly overlapped and shrank. The power of the demon I was like a sharp sword that penetrated into the interior of the stone tablet to probe. Buzz. The interior of the stone tablet contained a desolate and ancient energy aura. Chu Hen's horizons suddenly broadened. It was as if he saw billions of stars, vast seas, mountains and rivers. Under the chaotic firmament, everything in the world, the rotation of the sun and moon like a dream or an illusion, real or fake. The stone tablet seemed to contain an ancient, majestic power that had fused with the heavens, the earth, the sun, and the moon. Feeling the strange power within the Great Path divine stone, Chu Hen was secretly happy. As expected, he still had to rely on his demonic I-holy body. But just as he was about to try to use the power of the demon I bloodline to control the power contained in the stone tablet, a sudden repulsive force suddenly surged out like a mountain torrent. Chu Hen's expression changed. Buzz, before he could react, the demonic eye's power that had seeped into the stone tablet was jolted back. The purple light covering his arms was immediately extinguished and shattered. What? Chu Hen's eyebrows that had yet to completely relax wrinkled even more. The power of his demonic eye was directly bounced back. The power of the Great Path Divine Stone was so domineering. Just as Chu Hen was at his wits' end and felt that he did not know where to start, something unexpected happened again. He saw that the surface of the stone tablet was suddenly covered with strange dark golden patterns. Every line flickered with a brilliant light, as if they were ancient runes and secret scriptures. There was a desolate and ancient aura in the mystery. Whoosh! Rings of intense spatial fluctuations spread out in all directions. The air was like ripples on the surface of water, and the surrounding mountain peaks were also faintly split open. Buzz! The air waves trembled and sounded abnormally heavy. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes suddenly narrowed. He was shocked to find that there was a black shadow floating behind him. The black shadow stuck closely to Chu Hen's back. Its outline and shape looked like a shadow clone superimposed from Chu Hen's body. It's the chaotic body. In that instant, Chu Hen's mind was filled with shock and astonishment. The power of the chaotic body began to circulate on its own. But what shocked Chu Hen even more was that the chaotic body caused the stone tablet to react. Thick black flames began to cover Chu Hen's entire body. It was like the flames of hell slowly rising. Chu Hen raised his arm again, and the black shadow behind him repeated the same action. Buzz! When Chu Hen pressed his palm onto the stone tablet again, accompanying the space that was trembling, a circle of thick black light spread out. The runes and secret inscriptions on the divine stone were like ancient restrictions that were instantly activated. One by one, they lit up, blossoming with dazzling radiance. Chu Hen's eyes were filled with the dazzling light in front of him. Great joy quickly spread across his face. The black light flowed along Chu Hen's arm toward the stone tablet. It was like a door to a new world had been opened. Chu Hen was no longer shut out. The many runes engraved on the stone tablet were as bright as stars. With a thought, Chu Hen's 5 fingers tightened. Along with the sound of the stone wall shattering, the mountain-like ancient stone tablet slowly separated from the ground and floated in the air. At that moment, the entire world seemed to tremble. Even Chu Hen's heart sped up. I never thought that my chaotic body would be able to control the power of the Great Path Divine Stone. Surprise, shock, and deep excitement. In the blink of an eye, the huge stone tablet directly hovered in the air. It was like a meteorite that had fallen from outer space. Below it, Chu Hen was like a mayfly trying to shake a tree. He was extremely insignificant. Afterwards, Chu Hen bent his fingers slightly, and the bloodline power of the chaotic body surged out. Whoosh! Following an extremely overbearing dark aura, the huge stone tablet shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye. 3,000 meters, several hundred meters, 300 meters, 100 meters. In the blink of an eye, the ancient stone tablet had shrunk to less than 100 meters tall. Looking at its full appearance from such a close distance, the broken corners were extremely obvious. It was obvious that there was still an incomplete tablet. This was only a portion of the Great Path Divine Stone. Then, an astonishing suction force erupted from Chu Hen's palm. An irresistible vortex of devouring power enveloped the Great Path Divine Stone. Gentle white light revolved around it. Then the stone tablet became illusory, turning into a streak of light and disappearing into the air. It returned to Chu Hen's violet palace. The empty surroundings returned to how it had been before. At that moment, Chu Hen's eyes narrowed. A domineering ball of black light shot up his right arm, along with strange inscriptions that radiated with an ancient presence. The black light mixed with the dark golden inscriptions rapidly wrapped around Chu Hen's arm. In the next moment, Chu Hen threw a punch. A power comparable to a torrent erupted in an instant, and a majestic fist pillar with monstrous flames pierced through the air. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion resounded. Rocks and dust flew everywhere. A mountain peak on the south side of the canyon in front of them was instantly turned into a flat land. The power of a casual attack. It was so terrifying. Chapter 1164. Boom! Sand danced in the air and rocks collapsed. Violent shockwaves wreaked havoc in the huge canyon, flattening the vegetation inside and inverting the springs and streams. Seeing the mountain peak disappear in an instant, Chu Hen's face was filled with unconcealable shock and joy. The attack just now had fused with the power of the great Tao Divine Stone. Just a single punch possessed the might of lightning that could destroy mountains and rivers. It was both an accident. He was also extremely excited. The power of the great Tao Divine Stone was so shocking. What surprised Chu Hen even more was that his chaotic body could actually control this power. And this power was even repelled by the bloodline of the demonic sacred body. Why was this happening? Was it a coincidence? Or was there another reason? He couldn't even reach the Xian body? The corner of Chu Hen's mouth curled up into an indifferent arc. This time, the martial organization had made a mistake. In the dark night, the cold wind blew and the roars of the demonic beasts in the distance were endless. However, Chu Hen's eyes were as bright as stars, shining brightly. Time passed day by day. In the following period of time, the martial sect was still rather peaceful. Chu Hen was busy between the Sky Observation Peak and the Sky Martial Peak almost every day. He would often stay in the Star Dream Realm for a few days or even more than 10 days. The Shao Alliance and Shun Hong did not come to cause trouble for Chu Hen again. Of course, Chu Hen was not afraid of them. Other than studying the North Star Mantra, Chu Hen also relied on the miraculous aspects of the Star Dream Realm to strengthen and perfect the two main powers, the solitary burning demon flame, and the profound killer divine lightning. Chu Hen, who could already use these two powers freely, had reached a point of perfection. Of course, other than that, Chu Hen had never stopped studying the great Tao Divine Stone. With the assistance of the chaotic body, Chu Hen was able to see the appearance of the ancient item. Although he was nowhere close to controlling it, he could borrow the power of the divine rock of ways at the very least. Even though Chu Hen didn't know if the chaotic body and the divine stone of Tao had some sort of connection, he was still not sure. However, he could sense that the bloodline power of the chaotic body was gradually strengthening, and the power he could erupt with was even greater than before. Big Brother Chu Hen, I successfully condensed the third magnificent star jade yesterday. Tianwu Peak Plaza. It was almost evening. Chu Hen, who had just come out of the astral dream realm, happened to meet Yi Yao and Long Xuanshuang, who were preparing to cultivate. As soon as they met, Yi Yao excitedly reported her victory to Chu Hen. Chu Hen faintly smiled. His eyes flashed with the tender love of an elder brother. It won't be long before I break through to the ancient eternal realm. Yes. Yi Yao's eyes flickered. Master gave me many pills to increase my cultivation and stabilize my foundation. Coupled with the fact that I cultivate in the astral dream realm every day, it's a little fast. It had to be said that the Beichen Peak Lord truly valued Yi Yao. Not only did he provide an unlimited amount of pills for cultivation, but there was also almost no time limit for Yi Yao to enter the astral dream realm. Star keys were constantly being provided. It was no wonder that Yi Yao's cultivation increased so quickly. Yi Yao did not disappoint Beichen Peak Lord either. In just 3 months, she condensed the third magnificent star jade. Even the #1 genius of the Beichen Peak Academy, Wu Yen, could not achieve such a shocking speed. It was easy to guess what the Beichen Peak Academy was thinking. Of the 4 great academies, the Beichen Peak Academy had been suppressed by the other 3 for so long. If they wanted to make a comeback, they needed to invest heavily and nurture even more peak geniuses. Yi Yao was one of them. However, in comparison, Long Xuanshuang, who was beside the two of them, was a little quiet. Although she did not usually like to talk, Chu Hen could still see a hint of loneliness in her eyes. In Dongxing's state, Long Xuanxuang was a true proud daughter of the heavens. However, in the martial ancestor realm, where geniuses were as many as dogs and monstrous geniuses as the stars in the sky, she more or less dimmed. Although her martial arts talent had reached the 9th level, the limit of the mystic body's bloodline had become her biggest shortcoming. In the central state, where sacred bodies could be seen everywhere, it was really difficult for a mystic body to stand out. When Yi Yao's cultivation increased by leaps and bounds, while Long Xuanxuang was happy for her, she also secretly worried about her own condition. After a simple chat, Yi Yao went to the astral dream realm to cultivate the Beichen art. Long Xuanxuang also prepared to go. She had just taken a few steps when Chu Hen's slightly low voice came from behind. That, Long Xuanxuang looked back at him and was a little puzzled. What's wrong? Chu Hen smiled slightly and there was some gentleness between his brows. He looked at Long Xuanxuang's beautiful phoenix eyes and said seriously, "No matter what, there's still me. There's still me." Hearing this, Long Xuanxuang's heart skipped a beat. Their eyes met and after a short moment, Long Xuanxuang's red lips curved slightly and the gloominess in her clear eyes dissipated. She smiled and said, "I know." Chu Hen also nodded his head. "Quickly go." Looking at Long Xuanxuang's tall and beautiful back view, Chu Hen's eyes were filled with a trace of complex meaning. Then, Chu Hen left Heaven Marshal Peak alone. When he returned to Sky Observation Peak, the sky was already completely dark. The Beichen Peak Academy that was shrouded in darkness was slightly quiet, and the Sky Observation Peak that no one came during the day was even quieter. Chu Hen stood at the edge of the southern cliff of Sky Observation Peak. In front of him was a canyon with a deep pool of water. The water flowed between the peaks, and under the cover of the night, it looked like an ancient dragon sleeping at the foot of the mountain. Chu Hen's gaze was deeply fixed on a certain place in front of him. The words that Yi Yao had said not long ago echoed in his mind. "Big brother Chu Hen, I've already condensed the 3rd magnificent star jade last night." The 3rd magnificent star jade. It was this sentence that made Chu Hen's heart feel as if it was woven into a net. Because just before he left the reverberation star realm today, Chu Hen had also successfully condensed the 3rd magnificent star jade. The two of them cultivated different versions of the northern star art. Yi Yao cultivated the original version, while Chu Hen cultivated the modified version. From the beginning, Yi Yao was ahead of him by a whole month, to now it was almost at the same speed. The difference was becoming more and more obvious. If there were no accidents, the speed at which the next magnificent star jade condensed, Chu Hen would directly surpass Yi Yao, who cultivated the original northern star art. Old Een Monkey? What kind of person was he? From the looks of it, he did not modify the northern star art, but improve this martial art. In just 3 days, he comprehended this supreme martial art from the sacred martial art tablet, and then perfected it. Such a person, he actually chose a place like Sky Observation Peak that was lacking in spiritual energy as a place to cultivate? A series of doubts were like a spring that could not be suppressed, constantly surging up. The more he thought about it, the more strange it was. The more he thought about it, the more unbelievable it was. A bright and beautiful meteor streaked across the vast night sky. In that fleeting instant, Chu Hen abruptly rose into the air, and directly swept into the void thousands of meters above the ground. Looking down from above, Chu Hen looked down at the mountains and rivers below. Demon Eye, a bewitching and demonic purple luster filled Chu Hen's eyes, like the eyes of a demon god, sweeping across the Sky Observation Peak below. In the next moment, Chu Hen's pupils constricted, his face surging with astonishment. In the darkness shrouded by the curtain of night, with Sky Observation Peak as the center, a huge talisman array that spanned nearly 100 miles interweaved between the mountains and rivers like a net. Obscure array patterns spanned north and south, connecting east and west, like an undercurrent hidden in the ground. Such a magnificent huge talisman array, Yet it had a majestic aura that used the earth as a board and the stars as chess pieces. This is? Looking at this scene, Chu Hen's heart was like a huge wave that surged to the heavens. Genius? Madman? None of them. That old Een monkey was an out-and-out genius madman.